we left our heroes, they had holed up in Fort Kersey, one of the 4 wooden fortresses that has been built by the new arrivals, so to speak, in Valconen. They had been chased there by these strange, shadowy, potentially elven-like creatures from the mountains to the far northeast. They sought refuge at the fortress, and they now find themselves besieged in Fort Kersey. So let's get a bit of suitable dramatic music going. There we go. Okay, so on it's probably like the second or the third day of the siege. You've not really had a chance to rest as such. Everyone has been pressed into shoring up the defences and making the place as ready for a siege as it possibly can be. Obviously, this is no castle of stone that you're inside. It is a wooden pioneer fortress, so it's vulnerable to fire and such likes. There's a small well, and there are some supplies, but they weren't expecting like a prolonged siege, so they've not got stuff laid in for that. So everyone's been put to work, basically shoring up the defences, trying to get what food they can, making sure everyone's inside. There is a small group of trained soldiers who serve as the normal guards of Fort Kersey, led by a slightly elderly, so I suppose warrior or soldier you might call him. You certainly, Weimar would probably recognise him as a sort of a soldierly person. A man by the name of Matthew Nelson, who is the captain of the Kersey Guards. So, and the rest of the people are just like, there's a few peasants who, like anyone who can hold a weapon, has been like pressed into the defence of the walls. And obviously there is also a Lord Kersey, although he is an extremely old man who must have once been a formidable warrior, but now he is definitely somewhat past his prime. So we join our heroes on the second or the third day of the siege. A small canvas tent has been erected in the centre of Fort Kersey, where Lord Kersey, Captain Nelson, and his soldiers, and obviously yourselves as people who are sort of a bit smarter than the average bear, so to speak, when it comes to like these sort of things. You've got more experience in the field of combat. We find you all huddled around this command tent. There is dust and snow everywhere. Obviously furniture's been used to like shore up weak points in the defences. Snow is falling. It's very cold. Quite a few people have been injured, so the sort of constant groans of the injured has become like the backdrop, only drowned out by the sort of howling of the winter winds over the wooden walls. As you look out through the flap of the command tent, you can see a few of the people who are on guard on the wall, sort of like pulling their furs tighter around themselves against the cold. Normally there would be like braziers about and things like that for people to keep warm, but obviously with arrows and things being fired over, any braziers have been doused, because obviously a fire could be incredibly dangerous in the sort of wooden fort, even in these wet conditions. So you find yourself sat in this command tent. Lord Kersey, this sort of bluff old warrior, is basically saying that he thinks you should weather out this siege. He's like, surely these creatures, whatever they are, they can't sustain this siege indefinitely, and obviously they're out there in the elements and the winter's coming in. Surely all we've got to do is outlast them. I mean, it won't be easy. We'll have to ration the supplies and such like, but we're a hardy people when it comes down to it. I'm sure we can do it. As you sort of like look around, you see Captain Nelson doesn't look confident in that proposition, and he but obviously doesn't want to contradict his lord, and very sort of in a sort of slightly halting tones he says, yes sir, normally I would agree with you. However, these creatures, whatever they are native to these lands. They presumably know the territory and the weather patterns better than us, and they have ample hunting opportunities, assuming they even eat, of course. We don't know what manner of creatures these are. It's possible they could maintain this siege for a very long time, and whilst we're confined within the walls, we have only limited food. Yes, we can ration, as you rightly say, my lord, but obviously that will only go so far. I mean, I don't wish to sound arrogant or harsh, but obviously we have lost some people already, which, if there's less mouths to feed, that will help with the food situation, but only to a certain degree. And then like a few of the eyes in the room turn towards yourselves, sort of like people who've been marked as like people who like know what they're doing. Whereas there's a few soldiers, but Kersey and like Nelson are both sort of like in their dotage, not to put too fine a point on it. They probably weren't expecting to like see battle again. A lot of the sort of soldiers here, they've just been like guarding these walls. The most they've probably had to deal with is like a couple of bandits and stuff like that. They're not really sort of honed military people, whereas the word sort of got around because like people are starting to like hear about you guys now. Like, obviously you've been out and about and all over the place in like Valconan, so like, people have like mentioned you, people have started to hear about you and like various things you've done. Obviously people have like known that like you've been to the Witch Isle, which before then was like, oh, if you go to the Witch Isle, you're dead. That's it. Like only the dead go to the Witch Isle, and you guys have come back and you're like, Witch Isle sorted. So like people have started to, your reputation has started to grow, which is obviously great because like you're going to find it easy to get in places. You know, people know you. You might get a better deal with like your equipment and stuff like that. But obviously there is a certain amount of responsibility that comes with that. And as Lord Kersey and Captain Nelson finish the speech, like, you feel like the eyes in the room turn towards yourselves, perhaps looking for your input in this. Now you know that obviously unfortunately we've not got Colin this evening, so what I'm going to say is that Leopold is putting his dwarven heritage to use, and he's helping like what few engineers they've got sort of like shore up the defences and make sure there's no like structural weak points and whatever. But yeah, all eyes turn towards you guys.
What's the siege about? What do they have?
How do you mean?
The enemy, I mean.
Okay, they've got sort of like personal weaponry, bows, arrows, stuff like that. They don't appear to have like any massive siege weapons or anything like that. They've got like no like trebuchets or anything like that. However, and they seem to only sort of like attack during the night. However, you notice that on the second day of the siege, like the day before now, when you looked out in the morning, because it was suggested by Captain Nelson that since they only seem to be active at night, maybe like you could make a break for it during the day. On the second day, you looked out at first light over the rolling hills that surround Lord Kersey, and at first you thought there was just like mist and dew clinging to the hills, and then it dawned on you that what you were seeing was a thick patchwork of webbing that seemed to cover the hills surrounding Fort Kersey. Occasionally the webbing shifts and sort of undulates as though like something's moving underneath it, but as of yet you've not seen what it is.
And how many are attacking at a time?
It seems to be small parties that attack at a time. However, there is like a larger force, but it's difficult to tell because they only seem to move at night. They almost seem to just like fade away during the day. Like you literally can't see the surrounding force during the day, which is why the suggestion was made, maybe make a break for it during the day. But then this thick coating of webbing has caused everyone to sort of have second thoughts about that.
Okay, and how far from the fort is like the webbing and where we think that they are at night?
You think they've basically set up like a circle, like maybe like half a mile away from the fort, sort of surrounding the perimeter, and the webbing seems to sort of like encompass that area, sort of from the inside of that to the fort.
Okay, so the webbing is kind of between the fort and where we think they are.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And we think that there's something under the webbing, as best we can work out.
Yeah, as best you can work out. Like, there's been a couple of times I'm like watchman, or I tell you what, can you all roll me a d6?
Two fives and a two.
Okay, so Malcolm and Brock, you've just happened to have been sort of on watch because everyone's taking a turn with it, obviously on the walls. You just happen to have been on watch like during the day, and there's been a couple of times where you've seen like the webbing sort of like move and shift as though something was like moving underneath this carpet of like sticky sort of dew encrusted webbing.
Okay.
And does that dissipate as soon as night falls?
The webbing, no.
So it's there all the time?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. And they just move through it?
Yeah, they seem to pass through it without problems.
Right, okay. So I guess that's our option, is to investigate that during the day when they're not about, potentially. Just to understand what it is and how it works, or...
And whether it burns.
Yeah, whether we can, get through it or destroy it in any way, or...
So I think I'll turn to Lord Kersey and say that we should definitely investigate this webbing. It feels like there's something underneath it, and we need to know what we are facing. And I also suggest that we put our engineers to building catapults that can shoot the half mile and send them scampering.
He says that that's a good idea. If only we had the wood and the supplies in order to do it. I mean, most of the wood we have has been pressed into shoring up the walls and the defences. If we start stripping that out to make trebuchets and catapults, then we'll be in more danger of the walls being breached.
Did our characters ascertain any knowledge of these creatures last time? I can't remember. Did anyone...
Well, kind of. We basically came away with the knowledge that it's mostly about the masks, seems like. If you break them, then things get really bad for the enemy. And they're very swift. They don't really get bothered by terrain. Yeah.
But did we work out if they are sort of human or some sort of spiritual thing, or I mean, do they eat? Do we know if they?
I don't think we know.
No, you don't know whether they eat. You know that their weapons, like the arrows they use, so like after they've done their damage, they sort of dissipate and dissolve like a shadow when the sun shines on it. Also, when they're killed, their bodies, beside from the mask that they wear, their bodies likewise seem to like sort of melt away like a shadow.
But we did fight them, and they did chase us during the day. They're not like vampire type.
Yeah,
They
you've seen them active during the day.
Yeah. But they seem to be less active during the day during the siege. Unless that mask thing sort of protects them from some sort of weakness to the sun. Or
It might just at the base level. It might just be that their cycle is different.
Yeah, different way around. Yeah. Okay. Well, that would be my thing. Would be suggest to investigate the edge of this webbing during the day.
Figure out what it is. Even.
Yeah, see if there's any way we can get our way out of it if it all gets really bad.
And also then, John, within the half mile circumference around the fort, is there any kind of like tall trees or...
Not really, it's mainly sort of rolling hills.
Okay.
Would there be any hunting opportunities, or is it all sort of in the webbing, pretty much?
I mean, if you get outside of the webbing, which is like say like this half mile sort of a area around it, then once outside that, obviously there are hunting opportunities. You would know the sort of animals you can catch.
Just
but
in case we need some extra food. But okay. Well, I think that'd be the proposal, is to reconvene after investigation. I think maybe
Okay, so
feedback our findings.
who's heading out to investigate the webbing?
I'll
Nice.
go anyway.
Well, I thought safety in numbers, wouldn't it be?
Well, I'm not that quick if we need to sort of retreat. So maybe if we can spare some soldiers.
Brock and I can go, and you can cover us from the wall, and we won't go far to investigate. It's right. It's right,
Yeah,
right
but-
up to the wall, right?
Yeah, we literally just want to investigate the edge of it, don't we? That's it.
So that's probably the best option, because we can move at pace.
Okay,
And I do have a longbow.
exactly. So, like I said, on the third day, Weimar takes up position on the wall with his longbow, and Brock and Malcolm head out to the edge of this vast expanse of this like shimmering, sticky field of this webbing that, like I say, occasionally seems to move or sort of undulate as you look at it. As you get to the edge of the webbing, you can see just from a visual inspection that it looks very similar to like standard spider webs, but it's like orders of magnitude like thicker. It's like a scaled up version effectively, and you can see that what to the untrained eye from the walls just looks like a massive web is actually this sort of like carpet of like smaller webs that are all sort of woven together.
Okay. So I think the first thing I want to do is try and burn it.
Okay,
See if that has any impact on it.
so yeah, you're gonna burn it with a torch or something like that, I presume?
Just a torch, yeah.
Okay, no problems. So, yeah, you take out your torch, and it seems it doesn't burn as well as normal webbing. However, it does burn, and you're able to burn like a sort of like a small patch of it away. But it does. The fire doesn't really seem to like catch and like spread to the whole thing.
Yeah, okay.
But like it can be burned with like sustained heat. Although, like I say, it seems a little bit more resistant than a normal spider web.
Okay.
Perhaps just because it's thicker and denser.
Okay, and I guess. So how far are we from the wall? Like 10 feet or something?
Yeah, you're like 10, 15 feet away from the wall.
Okay. So I think what I want to keep doing is burning until we see something moving and try and attract whatever is underneath the web.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on my sort of hands and knees so I can try and look under it as much as possible, while Malcolm's sort of burning it to see if I can see any movement or twitching, or can give him a heads up.
Okay, yeah. So no problem. You start sort of like burning various bits of the webbing, and after a while, Brock sort of crouched down. You do indeed notice what appears to be some like movement, like slowly getting closer to you. As you can see, like the web's being disturbed, and you catch sight of what appears to be like large, furry, like arachnid-like legs moving through the webbing.
Yeah, I'll give him a heads up to
Okay.
fall back or lose the direction it's coming from.
So I guess I will just have my sword ready, hoping to strike whatever it is.
Yeah, that's not a problem. You're ready. So, obviously, you're not taken by surprise when what appears to be like a giant furry spider bursts out of the webbing. Obviously, we haven't disturbed the webbing. It's sort of like used that to like home in on your position. It bursts out of the webbing. Both of you guys are ready for it. So if you want to attack it, you can do. Before it even gets a chance, because it's basically come out like. But you guys are like there, you know it's coming because Brock's told you. So if you guys want to, you can both attack him.
Let's do that.
Okay, so with the sort of respect coming down, Brock's two-handed sword coming down, and an arrow like shooting past from Weimar, you are able to dispatch this giant crab spider, this furry, eight-legged arachnid, and it sort of like collapses slowly to the floor.
Okay.
But this is a massive area that this covers, isn't it? I mean, there must be potentially. I hate to think how many.
And is this a spider that we've seen before? Is it a new spider? Is it?
You've probably not seen one quite this big, but again, it just looks like a standard sort of crab spider, but scaled up.
Okay.
So you've probably seen spiders of a type of this, but much smaller. I mean, your normal sort of crab spider's like sort of hand size, whereas this is like quite substantial.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking like this is probably like, if you sort of laid it out, it's probably like 5 foot long.
Okay. And do we know if any parts of it are venomous or
Well,
flammable or useful in any way?
not so much flammable, but you can definitely see it's got like sort of like venom sacs. So it obviously is capable of inflicting a poison.
Okay.
And in fact, as you watch, you see like a couple of drops fall from its like mandibles and like hit the ground, and they hiss with an almost like acidic like sound, and you smell like the sort of scorched earth as it's sort of like the venom like burns the earth.
Okay. So can I try and burn the spider with the torch and see if it goes up?
Yeah, you set fire to the spider and it burns.
Okay. Okay.
How have
Happy
they
to
managed?
try and get another one?
I'm just wondering how they've managed to get all these spiders coordinate like this.
I wonder how many we'd have to kill to attract their attention.
How far have we travelled, John?
About 10, 15 feet.
Yeah, and we're talking it's hundreds of foot wide. This webbing, isn't it? You know, so if it was anything like that, you know, we'd come across at least 10 of these or more, just trying to cut a single path through, wouldn't we? Unless we're just unlucky with finding one this quickly.
Yeah. John, can I walk on the webbing? Is the webbing sticky to walk on?
The webbing is sticky, and it's not so sticky that, you know, like you touch it and that's it, you're stuck to it. But as you're sort of like walking on it, you do have to like pull your feet up, and it's like it does slow you down as you move through it. You can like sort of brute force your way through it, but it does slow you down. And obviously, you know, from like spiders, like the more you disturb the webbing, the more likely you are to attract their attention.
So I think what I'm looking to do...
And in fact, roll me a d6, Malcolm.
2.
Okay. Okay, so you're sort of brute forcing your way through a bit of the webbing when and everything seems fine when like you see a bit of the webbing move, and sort of like your like hunter's instincts cause you to sort of like turn around, and you see what you'd thought to be a patch of the webbing is actually one of these spiders. Like it's the coloration, it's like the previous one was just like a brown sort of furry colour. This one, it seems to have like changed its coloration to like almost camouflage itself in with the webbing. You expect it was trying to take you by surprise and just like leap on you because you've been disturbing the webbing, but obviously you've seen it, so we're gonna come down to initiative. So you guys can all roll your initiative, or just pick one of you to roll the initiative, and we'll just do it in groups, whatever you prefer.
What's in it? Is it 1d6 for initiative? Is it?
Yeah.
I can just roll that. 2.
Okay, let me roll for the spider. Oh, I rolled the wrong dice. Let's try that again with a d6. Oh, it's a 2, so we're all going simultaneously. So, do you guys want to make your attacks first? Then I'll do its attacks, but obviously it's all happening at the same time.
So is this still visible to me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Weimar's hit it.
Probably missed, I think.
Okay, so just Weimar's hit it then. Okay, so as it's launching itself, and it'll be either at Brock or Malcolm. So I'm going to roll a d6, 1 to 3. It's Brock, otherwise it's Malcolm. Okay, so it's Malcolm. Right, so as it leaps towards you, like there's a and an arrow like strikes it in its exposed underbelly, but it's not enough to finish it off, and it is going to attempt to chomp down on you with its poisonous mandibles.
Ouch.
Okay.
Ouch.
So that is a 7 points of damage, and you need to make me a save versus poison, but you do get a +2 bonus for it
Okay.
because it doesn't have very strong poison.
Sorry, I got involved. That means this turned into a ninja spider.
A pass that.
Okay, so it bites you in your arm, and like the flesh sort of discolors on your arm, and you briefly feel this stinging pain in your forearm as though you'd like plunged your arm into like scalding hot water. However, perhaps due to your innate toughness, or perhaps you quickly sort of like dig out the venom bit, down to your choice, you manage to avoid the quite lethal consequences of like actually getting poisoned by it.
Okay.
However, it's still going. Obviously, we're still going simultaneously. So, if you guys want to, well, what do you guys want to do for your actions this round? Obviously, we're keeping it fairly abstract. That's fine.
Oh, that'll do.
Or support Malcolm if he's
Okay.
It's a smash for 8.
sticking around. I don't know if that's enough or not.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So, what about Weimar? Are you going in with the shot, or?
Is the spider still extant, or?
Well, all of this is happening simultaneously, so you won't know until the end of the round, basically. But like those two are like wailing on it, but good. Yeah, so between the three of you, you will finish off this spider. But obviously, because it's happening simultaneously, it will still get to attack this round. So again, 1 to 3, Brock. Okay, so this time it's Brock. Unfortunately, well, fortunately for you, unfortunately for it, as it sort of lunges at you, Brock, basically the two of you just like lay into it with your swords, and like a couple of arrows come like splattering down into it from the walls from Weimar, and you basically just like finish it off. It doesn't even get any vaguely where near biting you, Brock.
John Rule. And we haven't got much further, have we? We've only moved another.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's too many of these things. They're too dangerous to continue this. I think this is folly.
Yeah, I suggest we retreat, potentially get some healing if any exists, and reconsider our options from a.
Is there any way to make the fire more effective? Do you think?
Oil, maybe, but I don't know how effective it would make it. If it's like a half-mile squared of it.
Yeah. Just some way to cut through it a bit quicker and easier if we had to retreat or something.
Yeah. I don't have any oil with me either, so we'll have to see what exists in the fort.
We haven't got anything else, have we? I'm wondering if this is a potential situation for a sit down and have a little smoke on some pipes.
That is not a terrible idea. That's actually a pretty good idea, right? Because we're short information that we need.
Yeah, I
Well,
feel we're lacking something or missing something, maybe.
if you guys want to sit down and smoke a bit of old Dobie and consider your problem, that's absolutely fine.
Well, I'll suggest it to Weimar as well.
Well, I'm
Okay,
under
so
the-
you guys have sort of
Yeah,
like
once we get back. Yeah.
yeah.
they've sort of pulled back into the fortress. They've gone up onto the wall where you are, Weimar. Obviously, you're looking down. You still see these two spider corpses and this patchwork of webbing, with like a little like chunk taken out of it by their actions. And obviously, Brock's suggesting, let's sit down, have a smoke, and not think about this. Okay, so what you need to do for this is obviously you all need to cross off one of your tobacco doses. You can pick whoever is the most intelligent character, and you get to make an intelligence check, but it'll be an intelligence check with like a +2 bonus per person help, well, +1 bonus per person helping.
Yep.
So +2. Although actually I believe it'll be -2 because you're trying to roll under, aren't you, with your ability checks? So
Yeah, I'm 10.
any advance on 10 for the intelligence check?
11.
Oh. No, I'm way lower than either of them.
Okay.
Like, significantly lower.
Okay, so it's down to Weimar then. So effectively, you're rolling an intelligence check with like a -2 bonus.
Let's see if this actually does the thing. Oh, it says
Okay.
success, so
A
I guess we'll
success.
take it.
So basically, I'm going to give you a clue about what's going on. Obviously, you guys get to sort of direct the clue by like choosing what you're pondering as you're all sitting around with your pipes being like, yes. So what is it you guys are pondering as you're sat around smoking the old Dobie, looking out across this field of webbing?
Well, I guess there's a choice we have to make before we start.
Mm.
And that feels like whether we want to escape or we want to save everyone.
Yes, like breaking the siege would be a. Like how do you throw this off? If
Yeah,
they
so-
basically have made impassable terrain, how because we either way we need to cross that in order to break it or to escape.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if there's a way to either identify why these spiders are working with these guys and maybe sort of break that connection, or I don't know, somehow scare them off or something. Or I think that would be useful if we could take the spiders out of the equation somehow, or at least find a way to get through them or past them, or something to do with that, because we know these guys are dangerous and we can fight them if we had to. But
Yeah, but also if they had a weakness, that would allow, like, if we can keep winning the battles at night by learning the elves' weakness.
we'd still have these to deal with afterwards, wouldn't we? Even if we sort of won all these battles, we'd
If
still
they
be surrounded.
can't, probably wouldn't stay. Like, if they keep losing battle after battle after battle, they may
Yeah, but I
not
mean,
stay.
would the spiders then go, or would they stay as well?
Okay, so as you guys are sort of smoking and you're having this conversation and you're pondering this, you come to the realization, Brock, and obviously the rest of you, you're all talking as you're sort of doing this, that there's a couple of possibilities when it comes to the spiders. Either they've got some sort of like evil magical control over these spiders, in which case the method of disrupting it is to find whoever's like doing the magic and like do what your people do best when it comes to dealing with evil sorcerers. The other option, the other option is they've got some way of communicating with the spiders. They've got sort of like more like a sort of like a kinship or a bond with them, which isn't unheard of. You know that there's people, I mean, Malcolm himself can like create bonds with animals. So if they've got something like that, that might be more difficult to disrupt, because obviously then it's slightly more of like a symbiotic relationship between the two. But as this conversation's sort of going on, a thought does occur to you, Malcolm, as you're all like chatting this and you're smoking your old doby, is that if you guys wanted to just like get out of Dodge and you were just concerned with like getting yourselves out, the one creature that appears to be able to like move through the web unhindered, aside from like the shadow creatures, because they seem to be able to do it, but they're not likely to help you, but the one creature that seems able to just move at will amongst the webs is the spiders. Now, if there was some way maybe you could cajole one of them to your side. Now, they're not massive, so like I'm not saying like if you got one of them like you'd all be able to like ride a spider out across the webs to freedom, but potentially one person could ride one of them, and if you're on the back of one of those spiders, you wouldn't really be bothered by the webbing. But again, that sort of partly comes down to what the bond is between the shadow elves and these spider creatures.
It's nice knowing you guys.
Oh, you think you got your you think you're in there with the spiders, do you?
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
And as you're sort of talking about this, obviously we're sort of compressing time a little bit. We reach the end of the third day of the siege. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a roll for the attackers, and I'm going to ask one of you to roll for the defenders. And basically with the attackers, if I get a 4, 5, it's a d6 roll. If I get a 4, 5 or 6, they add like a point to their clock. For the defenders, if you get a 5 or a 6 on a d6, they add a point to their clock. Whoever gets the clock full first, if the defenders do it, they've sort of managed to like break through or like last long enough that the shadow creatures withdraw. If the shadow creatures get their clock full first, then pretty much like the defenses have like fallen and they're going to like swarm into the keep. So I'm going to make a quick roll up for the bad guys. So it's a 4, 5 or 6.
Ouch.
Okay, so it's a 5. So they get to add 1 segment to their clock. And who would like to roll for the defenders? See if you can get a 5 or 6.
Take it in turn, shall we?
Yeah.
No, you can just do it. It's fine. Totally your fault then.
Ah, all right. I'll see how this goes. Okay. There you go.
Oh, Brock, it's all on you. Letting the side down.
Okay, so at the end of the third night, again, like another wave of attacks from these like shadow, like elven like creatures occurs, and they're sort of like they're swarming the walls, they're firing arrows over the walls, and aside from the small like cadre of like soldiers, most of which are sort of like not that experienced, and a sort of peasant levy they've sort of drafted in, they're not really that proficient, certainly not compared to you guys. So there's quite a lot of damage from the attack. There's quite a few people injured. You know, they're sort of like they're laid up in like probably one of the sort of stores, like the trading sort of posts inside, which has been like turned into like a makeshift sort of I don't say medical facilities because there's not really like a doctor or anything. It's just like here's a building where we like chuck the people who are too injured to fight.
Sorry, just guys, if anyone is injured, we have the ring of regeneration, which would have healed you over the course of the night if we were swapping it.
Yeah, I'm injured, but I wouldn't be wearing that. I don't trust.
I'm a bit scraped up from the last time, so
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So, as a plan, I think what we should do is try and tame one of these spiders, try and get a sense of its relationship as part of that bond with the shadow creatures, and also potentially use it to scout out where they might be, how many there are, whether or not there's some kind of leader that we could take out, or what other insights we might get out of that. Because I don't know how many more nights we have.
I was going to ask John, during the attack in the night,
Yes.
do we see any movement from the spiders? Do we see these creatures communicating in any way before they sort of attack the walls? Or
Roll me a d6.
6, 5.
Yeah, so you actually notice a couple of things while you're involved in the attacks during the evening. But first of all, you notice that on each attack this sort of shadow creatures launch, although a lot of people are injured, some people are actually like dragged away by like the shadow elves, like almost like captives are just like taken. And you do notice at one point, although the spiders aren't like surging out of the webbing and joining the attack, you do notice like a party of the shadow elves, you've seen them like dragging one of these captives back towards the web. You notice as they get near the web, one of these spiders comes out, and the shadow creature makes this strange sort of like clicking noise from within the depths of its mask, and then the spider sort of scuttles off back into the web, almost like a
Is that any? I mean, I'll communicate that to Malcolm in case he's got any, because I know he's got some weird sort of powers over animals and stuff, potentially.
And was it multiple guys communicating with them, or was it a single
it was
guy?
just the one that was witnessed.
Okay.
Although like it wasn't like anyone a particular rank or that had anything marking them out. It was just one of the party.
Okay, and did the creature take the captive away, or was it just the creature scurried out of their way?
You got the sort of impression from what Brock's told you that when they sort of reached the webbing, the creature just sort of like reared up like it did when you guys got near the webbing. Then this like shadow elf sort of spoke to it, for want of a better term, and then it sort of like retreated back into the webs.
Okay.
So to you it seems less like sort of overt like magical control, and more like they're able to communicate with them.
Okay.
And the only other thing I was going to ask is did any of these sort of evil creatures fall during the attack that we could investigate, a mask or anything?
Yes, one of the shadow creatures was killed sort of near the wall. Basically, as they were retreating, taking their captive with them, one of them was shot. I mean, it might have even been by Weimar, entirely up to you. One of these creatures was shot as they were sort of like retreating. And as previously, its body sort of collapsed and dissolved, just leaving behind this sort of porcelain mask.
Yeah. So if the mask is still intact, I was going to try and retrieve that while they were retreating and bring it back to the group and see if we can look at it and learn anything from it.
That's absolutely fine. You sort of quickly like duck out. Unfortunately, you can't help the people who've been snatched, but you manage to get hold of this porcelain mask. You bring it back. It shows like a very sort of finely chiseled, almost like say like elven sort of like facial features, and it appears to be made out of sort of like chipped white porcelain.
Well, I'll show that to the rest of the group and ask Weimar as the intelligent one. What do you think of this? Could this be involved somehow in they're communicating with these creatures or have power over these creatures? Or
Well, there's probably a lot there that we don't understand. I think one of these did something to Malcolm as well.
I put the mask on.
Maybe don't touch the mask.
Okay,
Too late.
So Malcolm like grabs the mask, pops it on, just as you're like, I probably wouldn't do that, Malcolm. You put the mask on, and like the inside of it feels very cold. However, it doesn't seem to have any like overt magical effect or anything like that when you put it on. It just feels cold, like against your face, and that could just be because it's made of porcelain. It's been lying in the grass, in snowy grass, basically.
Okay. And if I talk while I'm wearing it, do I talk normally?
You do talk mostly normally, but there's an odd sort of like almost like hollow sort of like echoey quality to your voice when you talk while wearing the mask. It's not like anything like supernatural, like it compels anyone to do anything, but your voice just sounds a little bit hollow and a little bit echoey.
Okay.
That could do anything? Have any effect?
Should I try and talk to the spider wearing it?
I would say it couldn't hurt, but it probably will.
Yeah,
Well, we have a plan B if it doesn't work, right?
I mean,
Is you saved me.
we heard it talk, or we heard this creature talking to it, and it was all sort of clicks, and it weren't like it just talked into the mask and it translated it into ticks and clicks and
Yeah, but I don't know that.
talk. But,
Yeah.
what do these guys wear? I mean, would you be able to pass off as one of these creatures? Now we've got a mask.
They're just kind of shadows, right?
Yeah, they don't really seem to wear anything. They just seem to be like almost like living shadows. The only like thing of permanence that seems to be on, because even like when they die, like even the weapons like dissolve. The only thing of permanence seems to be like these masks that all of them seem to wear. And you observed previously that sort of the rank and file, for want of a better term, seem to wear these porcelain masks. And you also saw like the leader of one of the raiding parties when you were being pursued, who wore a similar looking mask, but it was made of like a white stone instead of like porcelain.
Okay, so I think I want to try and communicate with a spider and try and tame a spider and see if I can't.
You've healed yourself up, have you?
I have.
Yeah.
I have. So I'll probably drop over the wall on my own, so if this goes bad, it only goes bad for me. And I will approach the webbing and kind of make it move enough to cause a few vibrations, waiting for a spider to come.
I'm going to climb down a wall. I ain't going to leave him to just go out on his own. I'll stand back a bit, but I ain't going to stand and watch.
I'm gonna be on the wall with the bow.
It doesn't take you
Me
long.
and you have played together too many times.
It doesn't take you long of like poking the web for to attract the attention of one of these spiders. I'm gonna make a quick roll to see whether it manages to surprise you due to its like colour changing camouflage. So they're surprised on a roll of 1 to 4. Okay, so it does surprise you. Okay, so
Now I'm less easily surprised than other people. I don't know if that
okay,
matters.
how does that work for your special ability?
Only surprised on a roll of 1.
Okay, in which case, no, you're not surprised 'cause I didn't roll a 1.
Damn,
So
that's some shit.
So now, as you've gone out, Brock, you would be taken by surprise, but it's like not near you, so you're all right. So you're walking along and you're like, oh, there's no spider smile. Then suddenly what you thought was a bit of webbing, which is actually one of these spiders that's changed its colour to mimic the webbing, sort of like rears up, its mandibles clacking and this corrosive fluid leaking from them. You see Malcolm, who's obviously like aware this thing was there, sort of like jumps back, so he's out of like immediate range of it, just going. What do you do?
Yeah, chat to it, mate.
So I guess I want to approach it in a peaceful manner. And kind of gently talk to it, and I guess try and woo it to my service.
Okay. Okay, so you move forward and you're sort of like talking like very softly. The mask appears to have like no effect whatsoever. However, as you move towards it and you're like talking to it softly, it doesn't attack you, which is a good sign.
So
I mean,
I guess
it's difficult to tell whether it's friendly because like it's not exactly smiling, it's a spider.
no.
But it's sort of like moving its mandibles and it's moving like its legs like a bit slowly, but it's not sort of like and going for you.
But that's a friendly spider as far as I'm concerned.
So as I get a little bit closer, I'll take a little bit of whatever meat I have in my rations and throw it a small bit.
Okay. You throw this meat on the ground and it effectively like vomits a load of like this venom over it, and it quickly, I mean, you can see like how corrosive it is. It quickly like dissolves the meat into a puddle of like sludge, for want of a better term, which the spider then like leans its face down to, and it's this horrible slurping noise as it like slurps up the resultant goo.
Okay. Pretty gross. So yeah, and I guess then I'll just keep kind of thereabouts, trying to get it to connect with me.
You'd be able to get it to do anything, like move out of the way or sort of accept any sort of.
Once I win it, if I win it to my side, then it can understand what I need.
Yeah, it can follow. It will follow you and it will obey basic commands. So you sort of like move around and you know throwing a bit of meat down, and this sort of horrendous like vomit and slurping up of the resultant goo is repeated a number of times, and so as you're like moving backwards doing this, like it is following you like slowly.
Okay.
What do you want to do now?
So I guess I just want to keep going and I guess getting closer and closer to it so that it accepts me, I guess.
Yeah, it seems to have accepted you. Like you literally like to the point where you could just reach out and like touch it, and it's not made any like hostile moves towards you.
Okay. So if can I try and get onto its back and then kind of direct it to carry me out onto the webbing?
Yeah, you start sort of like climbing up onto its back, and it sort of shifts a bit as you're doing so, prompting a few sort of like heart-stopping moments as you're like, oh, is it going to turn on me? But after a while, it just seems unused to like having the weight of someone on the back of it. But eventually, it does settle down, and you're sat on the back of this big spider.
Okay. So I would like to direct it to move in the direction that we last seen the captive being taken.
Okay, yep. So to the sort of northwest, it turns around and it starts moving like quite nimbly across the top of this webbing with you on its back.
Okay.
And that was the last we saw of him.
Okay, I still have 2 tobacco, so
Yeah, I've got a couple.
we can sit down, Brock, and
Okay, so I mean this probably takes, I don't know, maybe half an hour to an hour with it moving across the web. It's still having to like pick its way across it, but it's like not bothered by the stickiness of the webs. And eventually, as you sort of like start getting like a bit further towards the northwestern portion of this webbing, you spy beyond it what appears to be some sort of building, maybe, or like of wood being constructed, and you can see a number of the shadow creatures moving around. Effectively, it looks like a very a very simple sort of like wooden structure has been constructed, and from inside the wooden structure you can hear like muffled screams and cries.
Okay. Is there any windows in it?
No.
No. So it's just like basically a door and then a bit of a door.
Yep.
How many of the creatures are floating around or?
Okay, you can see that currently there are 4 of them around the outside of the building, on the side that you're approaching.
And are they all watching the door, or are they just kind of?
They appear to just be sort of like milling around. They're not particularly sort of like unlike anything you'd recognise as like a guard pattern or anything like that.
Okay. 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 So, and is there any spiders in the vicinity?
You do see a few spiders about, yeah.
Okay. So, I don't know if this is possible now because I don't know how simple a command it is, but can I'll step off the spider where there's no webbing, and I'll direct the spider to walk up to where the door is and put pressure on the door and try and open it.
Okay, yeah, the spider heads. It's not a difficult command. Like go to that, push it. So the spider moves off. The shadow creature sort of like regard it as it approaches, but they don't pay any heed. There's other spiders about. It heads up to the door, pushes it open, and as it does so, you can hear like now louder, like the sounds of like obviously like human screaming and crying from inside, and occasionally you see sort of what appears to be like a glow or like a light from inside the door.
Okay. Okay, and is there anything else in the vicinity that I could kind of hide behind as I was moving towards the door?
Well, it's a hilly terrain, so you could probably try and make use of like the hills and the sort of undulations of the land to conceal yourself.
Okay, so I'd like to do that and get closer to the door and see if I can get to look in.
Okay, make your hide roll or whatever the equivalent is.
No.
Okay. So you do make it to the door. You look in through the door and you see what appears to be a horrendous tableau of torture laid out in front of you. There are these shadow creatures in there, although they appear to be wearing different masks to the ones that you've seen previously. The ones inside seem to be wearing like masks of silver, and as you watch, they basically appear to be like dissecting a number of the captives. Standing in the middle of them is another one of these shadow creatures, but this one looks like, at first you think, oh, it's just got like a normal face, like a normal like flesh and blood face, but as it sort of like moves around, you realise that it's actually another mask, but it's made of like flesh, and it looks like a pale, almost aristocratic elf. You can see it's carrying like a large dark wood staff, and it appears to be slightly larger than the other creatures. Occasionally it moves over, so it runs its hands over one of these torture victims, and you see like flashes of arcane light and darkness move from its hands and play across the screaming bodies of its captives.
Okay. How many creatures are in? How many of the silver creatures are in there?
4.
4. And how many torture victims are there?
8.
8. Okay. Okay, so would I do? What would I do? I think I want to call my spider, get back on it,
Yeah.
and head back towards the fort.
Okay, so you're just about to head back to the fort. Well, obviously, because you failed your hiding roll, you hear the sort of flesh-masked, apparently leader of these creatures sort of looks on and in a hissing voice says, "We are observed." And he lifts up what appears from his shadowy, billowy self, what appears to be a small rod of dark black wood with a black stone in the top of it. He says a syllable in Elven, which you roughly translate to something like the light in the darkness. And as he says that, what appears to be like dark shadow lightning crackles out of this wand towards you. So, can you make me a save versus wands?
Wands, okay. Oh, yes, please. Just about.
That's all good. It means you'll only be taking half damage. Okay. So you take 7 damage
Okay.
as you sort of throw yourself aside at the last moment, and this blackened shadow bolt of lightning sizzles out and sort of singes you as you throw yourself to one side. And
Okay.
as he sort of like, we are observed, you see the 4 silver mask wearing shadow creatures begin to like flow in your directions. Like I said, they don't really walk, they just seem to like flow.
Okay.
And you see all of them sort of like pulling out like similar looking ones from the depths of their own being as they're like towards you.
Okay.
But you will rapidly outpace them on a spider, to be fair.
Okay. So that's still my plan.
Yep.
High hole, silver, as it were.
Okay, so Brock and Weimar, from your sort of observation point on the wall, you've obviously seen your man Malcolm like head off into the distance. Then you watch as like he's basically heading across the webbing at like full speed on this spider, heading back towards the wall. And as he does so, you see a couple of these silver mask wearing shadow elves sort of wielding these dark wood wands following him. And as they sort of point these wands, you see this shadow lightning crackle out. You can see that like Malcolm's like a bit scorched. He's obviously already been hit by one of them, but like the 2 blasts that are fired at him as he like scampers away on the spider don't manage to hit him. And you quickly head back to the fort.
Okay. At which point I will explain what I have seen. 1 super scary wizard, 4 medium scary wizards, 8 torture victims, yeah, and not much way in the line of escape.
You've still got a spider, have you?
Yeah, I guess so. He's nearby.
And do these guys give chase far, or do they stop quite quickly?
They stop fairly rapidly. They basically sort of like come out of their like torture chamber. They fire a couple of blasts at him, and then they go back. They don't follow the pursuit because they're like, "You ran back to the fort. Like we're going to overrun the fort. We'll get you eventually."
Right, so they don't head into the webs or anything. Okay. Do you think you'd be able to get that spider to get us across the web as a group? You know, like one at a time, or at least keep the other spiders away from us while we were, if we needed to get out or mount a rescue, or...
I think we could probably get it to bring us there in turns, right?
Yeah, I'd say that's possible because it's a simple command like go here, let person get on you, and then come back.
Or what time of day is it, John? Is it early still?
No, because obviously we're compressing time and there's been like other stuff going on, so we're probably. And obviously, if at any point anyone wants to do anything else like random while the siege is going on, just shout up.
Yeah.
So I think we're probably getting something late on in the day now. So in fact, we're going to roll to see how the siege is progressing. So who's going to roll this time for the defenders?
I will this time.
Okay, so it's a D6, 5 or 6.
Oh, yes, 5.
Okay,
Nice.
so that's 1 on the defenders' clock. And I'm going to roll, I need a 4, 5 or 6 for the attackers. So they get 1 on their clock as well. So pretty much as evening falls and the siege continues, the defenders fare a little better on this evening, perhaps thanks to like the information you guys have brought back. You know, you're able to tell them what sort of weapons they've got. You know, you're able to tell them, yeah, they're trying to like snatch people, so we need to be like careful with this. And during the second night, there's still a few people injured, but like the shadow elves aren't able to like take any more people captive, because like you're on the lookout for it basically, whereas they did a sort of snatch and grab on the first night. And there's casualties on both sides. The defenders are still very slowly getting whittled down, and the siege is slowly like turning in favor, still going in favor of the attackers, but they've not just sort of overrun you on the fourth night. And as the next day dawns, what do you guys want to do?
Before it does,
Oh yeah.
I just worked. Is it worth session to work out whether these
Also
creatures?
get the ring on while we're in the
Oh yes.
area.
Is it
Yeah.
worth to work out whether the creatures have a weakness or what might be driving them or something, some information about them that before we just go toe to toe with a scary magic user.
I'll see if you can come up with any ideas from what you've seen of them that previous day, I guess.
Well, I'll tell you for nothing, the fact that obviously, you know, they're not like vampires, they can tolerate sunlight, but the fact that they mainly attack during the darkness would seem to suggest that like either sunlight doesn't favour them or they're better in darkness, because otherwise it'd be easier to attack during the day when you can see everything. So,
Yeah. They obviously got no sight problems in the dark.
no.
So if we're going to attack them potentially in the daytime, but then it does make us obvious a lot more obvious.
You also know as well from your previous encounter with like the raiding parties that at least some of them can summon like globes of darkness, which obviously if you do that during the day it stands out a mile, whereas if it's already dark and you sort of summon supernatural darkness, it's easier to sort of disguise that and sort of sow chaos and discord.
So are we thinking midday? We and a cohort of others take a stab at these sorcerers.
What is it? So what is the objective? To get the captives back, or to kill the sorcerers, or sort of both?
I
To
think
kill the sorcerers, I think, is the main objective. I think. I don't know, based on 3 days of torture, whether the victims are.
Yeah.
and if it comes to it, I think 'cause we don't know why they're doing that. I don't know that they would be looking for information on how to besiege a palisade fort. That's not something they're trying to ascertain. So,
I mean, are they potentially turning them into one of their own, or
deriving some kind of we have no sorcerers here to talk on that topic,
Yeah.
but I think we'll have to be prepared for it when we go in.
I wonder, would we set the building on fire with oil flames?
Do we have enough oil?
There must be oil in the fort, right, John?
There is some oil in the fort, yep.
Okay, well,
mean-
if we bring like a, I don't know, casket,
Like like a barrel, effectively.
Yeah.
Is there black powder in the fort?
No, there isn't.
No.
The other question is, do these guys get involved in the siege? Do they, attack the walls during the night?
You've not seen any of these wizards, for want of a better term, engaged in the actual attack. The sort of the small groups that seem to attack the walls seem to be made of the basic sort of foot soldiers wearing the porcelain masks, led by these ones wearing the white stone masks. You haven't seen any of the sorcerers with the silver masks, or you're presuming their leader with like the flesh mask joining in the attacks.
And did you say there was normal ones at this hut as well?
Yeah, there was
normal
around
guys,
the outside.
the
Yeah,
4 sorcery ones, and then the main one sort of thing.
yeah.
So I mean, is that an option? Go out during the day, hold out, hide up, wait for all the normal ones to start the attack in the evening, and then attack the sorcerers while they're sort of lower on numbers? Is that an option? If we just went to sort of 3 of us, or while the defenders try and hold them off? Just so there's less.
I don't like. There was only 4 of them, and I don't know if the advantage that they would have because it was nighttime would outweigh the advantage that we would have if they were missing kind of 4. Or, plus, everyone who left would be between us and the fort anyway.
Yeah.
So I think the daytime with flame is my sense.
I mean, we're basically are we basically saying we think if we kill the big bad that we might have a good chance of breaking whatever's going on here, and or at least demoralizing them enough that it might turn in our favor?
I think that's the assumption we're working to. John, did my connection to the spider give any inkling of the relationship between the spiders and the shadow?
No.
No.
Well, I guess that's the only real plan of action we got then.
Yeah, and there's no backup. There's no way out because you only have 1 spider, right? So, whatever we do, we have to
fully commit. Sort of.
fully. Yeah, there's no. Now, maybe I could go and burn the building and upset a few people and cause a bit of chaos and try and buy us an extra night. That might be an option. Because certainly the spider can outrun them.
Yeah, it's more just trying to divide them a bit, if possible, just so we can target the main guy with as little help as possible, and just
Now, what we could do is we could use a second barrel of oil, assuming that there was a second barrel of oil, and then at the opposite end of the fort, burn a very significant part of the webbing and attract like all the spiders to it and try and attract their attention to it or make it look like we're trying to escape, and then when that's going on we could attack them during the day. It might work.
And the other thing, does that have any influence over the other spiders? Because you're friends with it, can you like coordinate or get any assistance from the other ones to almost get them to help us with an attack, or at least get them to help us move us all at once? Or does it work like that?
Wouldn't it thought so, John? Does it? No, it's just it's a connection between me and my spider.
And that's a one-time thing, innit? You can only do one at a time. So
I'm a one-trick pony, as it were.
One spider pony. Okay, yeah. Is there any way I can get any rest up during the day, John? Because I know we're defending at night time. Health-wise.
Yeah, if you want to sleep during the day, you can recover D3 hit points.
Yeah, I like to try. Oh, you bugger. One. Okay.
So why don't we do this then? Why don't I go with the oil and try and burn down the building and see if they're vulnerable to fire, and then B, just what happens when their building gets burnt down and whatever experiments or magic they're working on is disrupted. And what I can try and do is have a couple of pot shots at the leader should he stick his head out. And then see if that shakes them up a bit. Rather than us fully committing to a raid.
You could try it, but it would mean the end of the captives if there is any chance of them still being alive, potentially, wouldn't it?
I think the way that they were pumping magic into them, I think we'd be doing them a favour.
Yeah, I mean, well, you were there, so that would be your judgment anyway. So, yeah, I mean, if Malcolm's willing to give it a try, support it.
Okay, and at this point, let's have another roll to see how the siege overall is progressing. So, who's going to roll for the defenders?
Okay. So D6.
Yeah, if you get a 5 or a 6, you get a.
Ooh,
That's a 6.
Nice.
Nice.
And I'm going to roll for the attackers. So it's a 4, 5, or 6. Okay, no. So the defenders have actually managed to turn the tide somewhat. They're obviously still in trouble, but the siege just bogged down into a little bit of a stalemate with the shadow elves not really able to gain a further foothold inside of the fort, but neither of the defenders been able to range far outside it.
okay. So I think at dawn the next day, I'm going to set off with my oil.
Okay.
And my torch. And my spider.
Yep, you get on the spider, that strap a barrel of oil to it, that's not a problem. You head off with your torch, you head out across the webbing again, and following the same path you took previously, you soon come across this wooden structure. Again, shadowy figures with porcelain masks drifting around at the outside. And again, the door now is shut again. You can hear screaming from inside, and through the slats in the wood you occasionally see flashes of light.
Okay, so I guess what I want to do is kind of creep up to the back this time, away from the door, hoping that everyone is milling around outside the door.
Okay.
And then basically open my oil, start basically putting it all over the roof, the back, the sides.
Okay. Make your sneak roll.
Oh, no.
Okay. So, with that failure, you basically get round to the back. You're just about to start sort of setting the oil out when you are spotted by a number of the sort of porcelain mask-wearing creatures. Luckily for you, only one of them seems to have spotted you, and it's one of the sort of the foot soldiers. Basically, he draws out one of these dark longbows that you've become so familiar with, and he fires off a shot at you. However, perhaps hampered by the bright daylight, his shot goes a country mile wide. You see the arrow thud into the webs, and then a few moments later, it just dissolves.
Okay. So I will continue with my oil.
Okay, not a problem. So it you hear it hiss out to its allies. Another 2 sort of move around the building, and the 3 of them are going to take pot shots at you again. So, first one. Second one and the third one. Okay, so one of them has hit you for 4 damage. One of these sort of shadow arrows like slices your arm. However, you have managed to get the oil spread across the building, like as much oil as you've got, basically.
Okay. So then, can I flame it this go, or do I need another go? Okay.
Yeah, that's you don't need to take an action. You've literally just got to drop the torch. So,
Yeah. Okay. So what I'll do is drop the torch, jump on the spider, and start heading towards the fort, and maybe stop 300 or 400 feet away, and see and look back and see what's going on.
Okay. It does seem to cut as you head back across the webs. It does seem to cause some panic. You see the silver mask wearing ones come like rushing out of the building as it catches fire. You don't see any sign of the leader, let's call him, the one wearing the flesh mask. However, from your vantage point, you watch as the building sort of really catches ablaze. You see him like still holding his staff. He just like calmly like walks out of the flames.
Okay. So as I see him, can I shoot at him from where I am?
You most certainly can.
Uh, 13.
Okay. That is not enough, unfortunately.
Okay.
So your arrow thuds into the ground near his feet. In response, he raises up a hand, points it in your direction, and he hisses something in a strange dialect of Elven that you're not familiar with. But you manage to sort of like piece together the sort of rough gist of it, and effectively he's shouting like death to the invaders.
Okay. Okay.
And then obviously like loads of arrows come raining down.
Okay.
You're sort of like you're quite far away, so like they just like patter around you.
Okay. Are they making move towards me?
They don't appear to be moving towards you, perhaps due to the daylight. You're not sure. They seem to be sort of holding back.
So I'm going to keep shooting at him. So
Okay.
until he does.
Make your roll.
Oh, that's a hit. I hope. 19.
Yeah, that'll definitely hit. So you fire one of your arrows and it like thuds into like the sort of shadowy body, passing through, tearing off some of this shadow essence. The creature screeches in response, and again it raises this wand, points it in your direction, and again this flickering bolt of dark shadow lightning sort of roils out of it in your direction. Make a save versus wands.
Oh, 20.
Okay, so you're only taking half damage. Okay, so you take 8 points of damage as you're hit by this bolt of shadowy lightning.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so can I shoot him again?
Yep. You know, he's literally like striding like towards you, basically just like holding this like wand out in front of him. So you're there like, and he's just striding forward like.
Okay. And has he stepped onto the web yet, has he?
Yeah, he has stepped onto the web. Given that they seem to be made out of shadow, it doesn't seem to impede his movement.
Okay. So I guess I want to keep moving away between shots so that he's not getting any closer to me. Oh, no.
Okay. Make another save versus wands.
That's a save, yeah.
And obviously with all of this like magical energy crackling around and arrows being fired, you guys on the walls can like see this. It's not subtle.
I'll be putting in arrows then, if we can tell what's going on.
Yep, no problem. Okay, you take 6 points of damage as another blast of this shadow lightning hits you.
Okay.
Obviously, if you want to fire on this round, Weimar, you can do.
Yeah, so I guess if we can tell where the lightning is coming from, I'll be trying to fire on them. There we go.
Ooh, terrible.
Okay, yeah, so you fire a shot, and as the arrow sort of arcs towards him, you see he like lashes out with this wand and sort of like smashes the arrow to one side. Okay, Malcolm. Oh no, sorry, that was your roll that failed, wasn't it? Why am I?
Yeah, I failed. Yeah, but
You
Weimar
actually
hit him.
Okay. So that I've just described is what he does to Malcolm's arrow. Then,
Longer shot.
yeah, the longest shot. Obviously, he's distracted by like deflecting Malcolm's arrow. Yours like passes through him, and again you see it tear off some of the shadow stuff that makes his body, and he lets out a loud hissing screech. Okay, make another save versus wands.
Safe.
Okay, as he continues striding forward, levelling this wand at you.
The plan just to drain this wand on Malcolm.
Okay, you take 12 hit points of damage.
Ooh, Jesus. Okay.
As another blast of this dark lightning roils out and strikes you. Basically, like, you see like Malcolm now, he is like scorched. Like there's like black patches on him where he's like scorching him and like burning his clothes. And like his hair's probably like standing up because obviously electricity.
Okay. So this time I'm just hightailing it. Just
Okay.
get into the fort because I am.
Not a problem. It will get one more blast at you, so make one last save versus wands.
Okay.
If I'm not sure about the order here, I think I missed that, but I will have shots as well. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
that's
go for it.
relevant. Basically, the idea being that if my shot kills it, I don't know, maybe it doesn't shoot. 13,
Okay, that is not a hit.
right?
So,
Oh,
okay, it's a success.
that was very close.
It's only half damage. So you take 7 hit points of damage
Okay.
as another blast of lightning strikes you from this outstretched wand.
Okay.
And it continues moving forwards. Obviously, you outpace it.
Right.
As you sort of glance back as your spiders like across the webs, you see the 4 silver mask wearing creatures sort of like form up almost like a unit behind it, the leader, and start sort of like following it as they're like moving through the webs.
Okay.
I will continue shooting.
Can we get more of the defenders to shoot as well now
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they're in range?
Let me just make a roll, see how they do. Okay, yeah, so arrows are fired by the defenders. A couple of them hit. There's no like serious sort of hits though. Obviously, YMY, you can roll for your own shot.
16.
That's definitely a hit.
3 damage.
Okay, so again, another ragged bit of shadow stuff is torn off this creature, but it barely seems to slow it down as it moves through the webbing.
Can I have shot from the wall as well now that I'm in the fort? Yeah. Okay, that's 3 hit points.
Okay, so yeah, another shot hits it. I presume you're all firing at the leader, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, no problems. So, it gets hit a couple of times, and you notice them sort of like falling back a little bit. They're no longer just sort of like striding forwards.
Okay.
So I think it's about time we roll to see how the siege overall is going. So Darren, would you like to roll me a d6?
Right, yeah.
And it's a 5 or a 6 for the defenders. Okay. And I need a 4, 5 or a 6 for the attackers. Which I've failed. So perhaps the damage you've done to the leader causes them to like regroup, and obviously you've burnt their building down. So the evening is actually like relatively attack free, but obviously the area around the outside is still patrolled by the spiders, still covered by the webbing, so it's not like the defenders can just hightail it out of the fortress. However, Brock, during the evening, because I see you sort of like slept a bit during, you're snatching bits of sleep here and there where you can. During the evening, you see the captain of the guard, Captain Nelson. You see him sort of loading up one of the few horses that the sort of fort has. He's like basically putting like a saddle on it and like putting saddlebags on it and stuff like that. It looks like he's getting ready to ride out.
What, himself? Does it look like?
Yeah, it looks like he's getting ready to ride out.
Oh yeah, I should definitely head over and try and grab the reins of the horse.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. You grab hold of the reins of the horse.
May I ask where you're going?
He says, the Lord Kersey has tasked me with the most important job. My lord has an ally in the nearby mountains to the east. He has tasked me with attempting to get through the enemy forces to see if this ally can be reached, to summon its aid to help us in the siege.
Well, I think your efforts are gonna go to no avail if you try and get through there on your own. This webbing will, I mean, a horse will just get caught up in it, and these spiders will just, you won't stand a chance on your own. If you're gonna try such a thing, then we would need to coordinate this somewhat better.
You see from the expression on his face that as you're sort of like you're saying this, like you're not saying anything he's not already thought of himself. You very much get the feeling that like he's basically doing this like his lord's ordered him to, and he's like loyal to his lord, but he doesn't really expect that he's gonna like survive.
And how far is this location?
He says, well, once outside the enemy's perimeter, it would take me a day to reach the location.
At least let me speak to Malcolm and see if we can get you across this webbing safely.
He nods and he says, I can't stay too long. My lord's orders were very specific to head out as soon as possible.
Well, I'll literally ask him just to wait 2 minutes.
He nods.
And pretend to gather some more stuff for his saddles and whatever, tighten up. And I shall go and seek Malcolm out.
Okay.
And
So I'll come over to him and so how far away is it where you want to get to?
He says I need to get beyond the perimeter of the enemy, and then it's a day's travel into the mountains to the east.
A day's travel by foot or a day's travel on horseback?
on horseback.
And how far is it on foot?
It'd take at least a couple of days.
Okay. And is there anywhere else to get horses?
He says, well, we have a handful in the fort. I don't know about outside that.
Yeah. So I can get you across the webbing safely, but not your pony.
He says, well, in that case, I will have to take the saddlebags and travel on foot thereafter. If I can bring my lord's ally into the fight, it may turn the tide in our favour.
Yeah, well, certainly I can see you over the webbing, on my pet spider.
He looks a little bit uncertain when you're like, yeah, just hop on my pet spider, it'll be fine. It doesn't look like he's loving the idea, but like he's definitely not loving the idea of going out on a horse either. So,
so I guess I'll give the spider directions to bring him in the direction he wants to go, to stop when it reaches the end of the webbing, and then to come back to me when he's jumped off.
okay, so
Has he agreed which direction he's going to come from when he comes back? Hopefully with the troops.
yeah, he says he's heading to the east into the mountains.
Oh, so he'll be coming from that direction.
Yeah. Although you get the idea, because obviously you've talked to him a little bit about this, Brooke. Although he's like not specifically mentioned the nature of like his lord's ally, you get the feeling that the ally he was talking about, he was like using the singular. So he wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get like a passel of like soldiers. He was like, my lord's got an ally.
Oh, right.
So it seemed like he was talking about one sort of person or one entity. Or
Can he give us the information on who this is?
yeah, how do you ask him?
So where are you hoping to find these troops? Who are you travelling to?
He looks a little bit uncomfortable and he says, I don't talk of troops. When Fort Kersey was first being built, there was a creature known as Dramgar that dwelt in the mountains and hills hereabout. My lord was able to reach an agreement with this creature that in return for sending certain food and supplies on a regular basis, if the fort was threatened, then Dramgar would come to our aid if summoned. It is he I hope to make contact with.
What sort of creature is this?
He says it is like a man, but gigantic in its proportions. That seems, from my opinion, I don't wish to speak ill of our allies, but seems, from my opinion, to be of relatively low intelligence, but of considerable physical prowess.
Well, it could certainly aid in the upcoming battle.
Indeed.
Well, I can only wish you the very best of luck, and hope you return safely.
Thank you. So you all sort of like sort out the spider to like carry him across the webs. It starts ferrying him across the webs to like the outskirts of the sort of perimeter base, and obviously then the spider drops him off and scuttles back to you. Now I'm going to ask one of you guys to roll me a d6 to like basically see whether he makes it or he gets spotted by the shadow creatures. It's going to be a d6 roll. If you get a 1 or a 2, he's spotted and it doesn't go well for him. I don't know which of you wants to take this mighty responsibility into your hands.
Well, after my 2 failures, I think it shouldn't be me.
Yeah,
I can do it. You can do it.
Okay. Well, praise Gale.
I'll loop.
Good old gal.
Okay, so he gets to the outskirts of the perimeter, and he does get spotted by some of the creatures. But obviously he's been living hereabouts for quite some time, so he knows the terrain. You see a few arrows sort of like head in his directions, and a few blasts of this lightning. But he gets a bit scorched and like a bit injured, but he manages to evade them. And you see him sort of like disappear into the hills. And at this point, who would like to roll for the defenders?
You want to take that, Malcolm?
It's a 5 or a 6.
You had an amazing run with the resistance rolls. Oh, shit. Well,
Okay, 4, 5 or 6 for the attackers.
Rely on the baddies.
See,
Messing it up.
the siege appears to have bogged down into a bit of a stalemate. You know, there's a few sort of like gains on the attacker side, a few gains on the defender side, but largely the attackers are turned back. However, obviously the supply situation is starting to get a bit more dire, despite the rationing inside the fortress. You know, like food supplies are starting to run a bit low. The fuel that's been used for like heating people is starting to run a bit low, and we know it's winter in Valconen now, so the cold can be just as deadly as the dark lightning of one of these shadow creatures. Okay, what do you guys want to do?
Think it's worth trying to do some sort of hunting attempt during the day to bolster the food a bit.
I think Malcolm would take the guys aside on the QT and I guess start wondering whether we were fully committed to this enterprise or could see ourselves fully committed to a different enterprise elsewhere.
I love the idea of like Malcolm being like, guys, how much do you actually care about these good people in the fortress? I'm just putting it out there.
So on our map, was this fort itself one of the sites of the Senna?
I'll have to check. Let me just have a quick
No, I thought it was the northern
No,
one.
it's the northern one. You're right.
Right. Yeah.
However, why I'm also just sort of like wondering about that. Roll me a d6.
6.
Okay, so you're sort of wandering around, and you're actually thinking, like, oh, I can't remember. Was this one of the Senna sort of strongholds? And as you're wandering around and you're exploring it, you satisfy yourself that no, it's not. However, you do notice something fairly interesting as you're sort of exploring. Obviously, most of this fortress is built of wood. You know, people came in, wood was what was available and could be thrown up cheaply. However, as you're sort of looking around, you notice that the fortress appears to have been built on some sort of like stone, or sort of, which was like incorporated into like the base of the fortress. Like, it looks like a large flat piece of stone that's sort of like lying level with the ground, and that's just been built on it. I mean, not the whole fort, but like probably one of like the towers.
Yeah. I will attract this to the attention of our little group here.
Yeah, you all have a look at this like stone. It looks like once upon a time it might have had some like markings or carvings on it, but they've been sort of like erased by the passage of time.
How big is it? Is it like 6 foot square or like?
It's probably about 5 foot. If it was like stood up, it'd be like 5 foot wide and maybe like 10 foot tall. But obviously it's been sort of like laid down flat and like stuff's been built on it. But since like the fort has been damaged, like you can now see like part of it's exposed.
And what were they? They were like sites that had something buried there or something, was it? Was that what we learned previously, that there was at least 3 sites, wasn't there?
Yeah,
I think there were more than that. They were like places of power to the Senna.
But we didn't sort of learn the power, did we, or
No.
how it works or anything?
No.
So is there any way we could use... We need some sort of mystical magic type, I'd imagine.
Well, since we're in a fortress about to starve and or die, as is custom, I will grasp the handle of my sword, and I will say if you got anything to say about this and what it might be, or what the writing might have been, would be the time again once more to speak up.
Okay, so you see Weimar's mouth moving and the voice of the sword coming out, and the voice of the sword says, "Well, I'm no expert in these things, but to me it looks like a way marker."
I'll look to to Brock and Malcolm.
What's a way marker?
Again, Wymore speaking in the voice of the sword says, "Well, from what I'm not really into all of this mystical tomfoolery, but from what I understand, there are these lines of energy that run across Valconan, and those who are inclined to the mystic arts, like the ancient Senna and stuff like that, could tap into these lines and use its power. So back in the day, they set up these stones to mark where these lines were. I believe they tended to run in sort of straight lines, as far as I understand it. I'm no expert."
So does that mean we think the creature's using that for this magic that he's doing?
Or they're looking for it?
Or they're... Mind you, we led them here, really, didn't we? Or do you think they were coming this way anyway?
Well, I don't think they necessarily would have sent out an army. Just because some people were scouting some rocks.
And seeing them, yeah.
Yeah, so it was only the scouting part that followed us, I guess. The army was just potentially coming this way anyway.
They do seem hostile towards, people.
Yeah, definitely.
So I
They
think,
called us the invaders.
which, that's a point.
I mean, do my people have any sort of history of these guys?
Maybe an
Any
intelligence
sort
check.
of myths or...
Or you can use wisdom if you prefer.
I'll just go with the intelligence.
Okay, so you know that when, during the Great Exodus, when most people went, Valconan's turning into an icy wasteland, we're leaving, and the sort of the forefathers of Wymore and Malcolm all headed south on the boats. Obviously, your people stayed behind, and they were like, "We're not having anything to do with this magic. That's caused all the problems. We're going to adopt a simpler lifestyle." You do know that there were rumours of some of you think probably Malcolm's people, the Wold, the elves, that chose not to leave with the boats, and they sort of retreated to the remote places of Valconan. But after that, you didn't hear anything about them. And obviously you've got legends of sort of bogeymen and shadowy creatures lurking in the darkness, but nothing that seems to apply specifically to them.
So they might be some sort of product of the elves that's left behind, or stayed behind, should I say.
Can I ask the sword if he thinks these elves might be connected to the smoking mirror?
He says, "Well, I suppose it's possible. I mean, it's not like there's a shortage of dark creatures out there. I suppose they could be. I mean, I don't know for definite, though."
But to answer Malcolm's earlier question, I feel that we should at least wait to see if this guy returns before we try and, save our own necks, if that's what you're proposing.
I was just having a conversation.
Yeah. But
Okay, so it feels like we have to do something to negate their advantage at night. Right. It just, I don't know what that is. It just,
Yeah, it seems like it would be hard to generate enough light with
yeah.
what we have at night.
Does your sword generate light?
It does. And I think that's probably something we can... It's probably enough for one of them.
extra power from that thing, can it?
I don't think so, and I wouldn't know how to even do that.
No.
I'll experimentally one hand on the hilt. I'll put the other on the stone, and just sort of trace the faded writing on it. So I
It
have
doesn't
no
seem to do
idea
anything.
what this is.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it'd just make it brighter or I don't know
Mm.
anything. Just because of the what's in the air almost.
Yes, I think if we decide to do something, the sword is going to be a very good ace in the hole for one thing, but I don't think it's enough to sort of carry us through.
Because we could, if we know where they're coming from, we could burn. You know, we put oil on a large part of the webbing and burn it just as they're coming, and use that to generate light. And then, if you're also generating sunlight with the sun sword, that may also, you know, that would at the very least give us an advantage of shooting them into the darkness, because we'd be able to see them, and maybe even put them off. That might give us enough of an advantage to see the night through, or
I mean, do they attack from all sides every night, or
Yeah.
is it a sort of yeah? Okay, so it's fairly continuous.
but there's plenty of oil, is there, John?
Yeah, there's a fair amount. I mean, it's not an inexhaustible supply, but there's a
Yeah,
fair
but-
amount of it.
But there's enough that we could do whatever,
Yeah.
large chunks of it on each side of the.
Yes, there is, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could potentially, if you're talking about that, you could potentially make a sort of a ditch full of it, couldn't you? And run it round like a wall of fire to slow them and light them up as well at the same time.
It's an awful lot of effort though to dig. And, you know, an awful lot of oil to.
Yeah, I don't know how much you.
I mean, I think it's more. It doesn't seem to stop them. They didn't seem to be concerned by the fire in and of itself.
The basic ones were a bit more affected by it, weren't they? Or seemed to be a bit more scared of it. The normal ones.
Okay, let's have a roll to see how the siege is progressing. Who would like to roll for the... Are you planning to roll out your set fire to the webs and use the
Yeah.
sword plan?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so you do so when the evening attack is launched, and that has now raised it, so you will be adding to your clock on a 4, 5 or 6.
Okay.
So who wants to roll for the defenders?
Well, I can do it.
Go for it.
Nope.
Okay, let's see for the attackers. Okay. So, despite the advantage that the sort of like the burning oil and the webbing around the fort provides, it also means obviously like people have got to go out and sort of like keep stoking the fires, and the shadow creatures just like pick those people off as they're sort of like tending that fire.
Okay.
And as you're sort of like obviously checking like the constellations and like working out how many days passed, you reckon you've got like basically like another turn on the siege before your man gets back, assuming he's managed to find this Dramgar and convince him to return.
Okay. So it feels like we have some time still. How are we doing on rations and?
They're starting to get pretty tight. Like people are starting to like look at the horses, and not as in let's ride out of here, as in like we don't need 3 horses.
Well, it's true.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, I said, well, we're keeping these horses, but like we can't actually go anywhere on horses. Whereas like we'd kind of like not to starve to death, so like, and Lord Kersey doesn't seem keen on that idea. Obviously, he's like a bit of a sort of old, like semi-retired soldier. He's like, you know, kill your horses, you know, carry you to battle, and or whatever. But like people are just sort of like, yeah, but like that's starving to death. We're not a fan of that.
What's spider meat like?
I imagine gamey.
Stringy.
Yeah.
Very, very webby.
Astringent.
Fiber rich.
Uh,
Oh boy.
There's a leg for everyone though.
Yeah, it's gonna give you a leg up. If you
That's it.
it just seems like there has to be a way to get more information about them.
We could smoke old Dobie.
Yeah, will we take another day to do that and just see
Yeah.
if we can?
Watch the siege unfold.
Yeah.
Literally unfold.
Okay. So yeah, if you want to smoke some more old Dobie, or like mark off another use of your pipe weed, and then presumably Weimar again is going to make an intelligence check with a -2 modifier.
Try and rest up a bit as well. Still got loads of hit points.
Oh man, okay, here it goes.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. So as the smell of old Dobie, finest pipe weed in South Valconan, drifts out across the air, you all sort of like talk about what's going on, and you're like, yeah, we need to find out more about these creatures that are attacking us, because all we really know at the minute is they're like shadow things with masks on who've got magic, and they're like, they might be elves who didn't leave during the exodus from Valconan, but aside from just maybe like asking them, which probably isn't going to go well, you can't really think of any particular way with what you know about them that you could sort of engage with them or find out this information. And at this point, who would like to roll to see how the defenders are doing?
How about someone else?
So it's a D6 roll, 4, 5, or 6.
back on me, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Oh, well done.
Nice.
Now we're on a 5-6, aren't we?
No,
it's
it's not 4, 5, 6.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Until the oil runs out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Roll for the bad guys. Oh no, they've not moved on. So with the aid of like the still burning webbing and the sun sword, you have managed to sort of like not push them back, but you've managed to prevent them from gaining any further ground.
I'd like to, because there's been talk of the food quite a bit.
Yep.
And are they still doing the snatch and grabs? of
Yes,
people?
they are. Yeah.
Trying to get people. I'd like to suggest that there's been a concerted effort, maybe not overt, explicit, but Weimar's been going around and, well, presumably there's other archers, so
Yes.
he's been talking with the other archers, just like, if there's going to be a grab operation, we're just going to shoot them. Like, we're not going to risk them being captured, we're going to shoot them if they get grabbed, so the bodies just litter the field then, instead
Yeah.
of being done whatever that is that they do over there.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens. Because much as the archers, the sort of like peasant archers, don't like the idea of shooting their own people, they like the idea of them being like tortured and mutilated by these shadow elves a whole lot less. So yeah, so as we get to the end of this day, there are like some of the bodies of like people from the fort that have been shot by people in the fort to stop them being taken, sort of littered around outside. And basically, when they shoot their own people who are being dragged off, as soon as they get shot and they die, like the shadow elves just drop them.
Yeah, which is a weight off of Weimar's head
So-
over there, because he's like, oh, I know what needs to be done, I guess, but that's proof if they just leave them, because the torture was the point at that time.
It
so
seems
that's
like whatever they're doing with them, whatever their goal is, they need them to be alive. As soon as they die, they just like abandon them on the battlefield.
So Weimar will be talking more overtly now that we have actual proof. We have proof of concept. They need the torture to do whatever they do. So if someone gets grabbed, shoot them. It's a mercy, and you deny the enemy. So he's sort of trying to sort of muscle in as some kind of a leader figure for the archers, just like do what I say because this shit works.
Okay. Is it worth going back out to see what they're doing now? It's been 2 or 3 days since we burned down there.
Yeah, we could take a look.
Well, I think you're the only one that can really get out there, aren't you?
Yeah,
If
probably
it's
with
been a-
a chance of getting back.
If it's been a couple days, you have the rings, so you're probably all good to go.
Yeah.
Okay, so you head out on your spider, and you're heading in the direction you went previously. You're about halfway there when you spot a humanoid figure like trying to struggle its way through the web, and you can see like a couple of spiders like closing in on it.
Okay. How is it? Big humanoid or?
It looks like normal human size. However, as you look closer, you see you recognise it as one of the people who was kidnapped from the fortress. However, as they're sort of struggling through the web, you know that like odd bits of their like skin appear to have been replaced with like this sort of shadowy like essence similar to the shadow elves.
Okay.
But it's just in like odd patches, and you see these two spiders are like moving in on it as it's trying to struggle through the webs.
Okay. Okay, so I will take a step back and see what happens.
Okay, the spiders jump on this person who's like trying to fend them off, basically using a stick, pretty much. You see they're wearing like the remnants of like their breeches, and they're like they're the normal sort of like canvas shirt that they would be wearing. It's covered in blood. They've got cuts all over them, and like I say, bits of their flesh appear to be just like phasing in and out of being this strange sort of shadow essence. And the person tries valiantly to like fight these two giant spiders off, but it's a peasant fighting against two giant spiders, and quickly the person's like bore down to the ground. You see that the spiders like covering this person in bites. You hear them screaming, and then you see like this discoloration on the sort of patches of them that have been bitten as the poison that flows into them. And after a few moments, you see this person like so like spasming, like drool and spittle coming out of their mouths, and they shake violently for a few moments, and then they lie still. You then watch as the spiders like vomit this acid, dissolving the body of this person, and then start slurping it up. It's incredibly grim to watch.
Okay, so I'll take the wild bird and keep heading on to see.
Okay, is there anything in particular you're looking for?
I guess I want to see if they've rebuilt the building, what's going on in their camp.
Okay,
Any sort of information.
they don't appear to have rebuilt the building. They now just appear to be like torturing people in the open air.
Okay.
They've basically just sort of like staked people down to the ground, and they're like continuing the dissections. Although they only have like a few people now because they've not been able to gain any recently because of Weimar's sort of like scorched earth policy, you know, like shoot someone if they get taken. So there's only like a handful of captives they've got. But you see all of these captives they've got, they all appear to have like random patches on their body which are where the flesh is gone, and there's like just this like shadow stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Then coming from the far distance, you hear a loud screech, and you watch as you can see the leader of the shadows. He's like stood with his back to you, facing away. You see there's like a person like staked to the ground at his feet, and he's like bent over them, so you can't see like the upper half of this person. He drops something with like a wet plopping sound on the ground next to himself. It falls into the webbing. Then he like reaches down, and the screaming rises in pitch, and you hear like this like wet tearing sound, and you see from behind this shadow elf hold up something, and as you look at it you realise it's the skin off this person's face. And then you then you basically just see him sort of, his hand drops down like that. You don't see what's going on. Then he turns around, and you can see like the skin is now on his face. It's now his face.
Okay.
And you can, as he steps away from the person to talk to one of his minions, you can see this person lying on the ground, their face with the muscle exposed as the skin has been removed from it.
Okay. And how many captives do they have?
Romeo D8. Okay, so in addition to this guy who's just had his face skinned, there is one other guy.
Okay. So I would like to shoot both of them to put them out of their misery and to deny this creature whatever he wants with them.
Okay, now I'm not going to make you roll to shoot them because they're static. For you, that is not a problem. What I'm going to say is, if you want to try and like get away before they get to you, can you make me a dex roll?
Huh? A success.
Okay, yeah, so obviously they do spot you as you're like, you kill these two people quickly, as painlessly as you can, headshots effectively, like through the eye and into the brain. You're spotted, and again you see these silver masked creatures like flow out, and again there's this blasts of this eldritch dark lightning in your direction, but you pretty much went and then just like turned the spider around and started going.
I tell it, yeah.
Yeah, so by the time your arrows have hit home, you're already like heading away. So a couple of the blasts sort of like singe you. I'm going to say you take... You take 5 hit points of damage as one of the blasts sort of like singes you, but the rest get nowhere near you as you're sort of scuttling away on your spider.
Okay. So I head back to the fort and explain that it seems like that these captives are becoming more like their captors, and that maybe this is a form of adding to their army. And that maybe if we were to kill this wizard, that we might end them, that the rest of them might scatter. But I still don't know how this wand is incredibly powerful.
Should we try and lure them out? A little bit?
Did they seem to follow me this time at all, John?
No. They basically looked up, fired the ones in your direction, but then were like, you're too far away, we're not going to catch you.
Okay. I could try and shoot him again. That seemed to get his attention.
Usually does.
Yeah. It's just the wand is so powerful. We couldn't be sure you'd make it back.
That is a point, because obviously like you've been fairly lucky with like your wand saves and getting half damage.
So how about we pitch a plan to the locals, make a spearhead, try and get him. Then, well, not everyone's gonna come back, but that's how it is. But if we go in there with more bodies, they're down bodies now. We know that. So
How many of them did I see in the camp, John?
You saw the 4 silver masked ones, the leader with the flesh mask, and maybe half a dozen of the foot soldiers.
Okay. And are the battles at night getting smaller and smaller?
They are, yeah.
Okay, so we think that these 10 or 11 might be all that's left?
Possibly.
and whatever number of spiders.
Yeah.
You do notice sort of like that the spiders are now taking part in the sort of attacks in the evening. So almost like as they've lost like shadow elves, they've had to like call in the reserves.
It's just how do we really want to cross there without You somehow need to get them over the spiders.
Well, again, if the captain's gone to get this so-called giant or large guy, then if we can hold out for 1 or 2 more nights and then make a final push,
Yeah, when they
a
turn up.
last charge sort of thing during the day.
So I guess that would be a thing then. We need to get everyone ready, and it needs to be everyone, I think. If we wait
During the
long
day.
enough, it doesn't even matter if there's people defending the fort at that point. So if we want to wait for whatever, if the reinforcements are coming, when they do, we need to be able to have a push ready with everyone on hand that can actually walk forward towards the enemy. So do we want to pitch that and then sit around and wait? Or...
Well, what we could also do in the meantime is damage the spiders during the day.
That's true.
Attract them one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Burn them. Just to whittle down their numbers.
Mm-hmm. So how about this then? The two of you, spider duty during the day. Yours truly, drilling everyone in what we're gonna do, and then we just do that until we run out of food and die, or
This Dramgar arrives. How confident is Lord Kersey that this creature is coming?
He seems pretty confident.
Okay.
If we have asked him, John, would it have been possible to take a browse through his thoughts with my steely friend?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
So if we've sort of touched on the topic, like, oh, so we're looking forward to the arrival of your ally, my lord. When do you think that will be? And then thought link.
Yeah, so using the Sun Sword's power of ESP, obviously as you've already got his mind turned towards thoughts of Dramgar, you see sort of like flashes of his initial meeting with this strange, like large, like, lumpy, sort of misshapen humanoid, and you see sort of flashes of him sort of thinking about when they originally met, and this sort of like he thinks of this creature as a troll, rather than like a giant, which is what the captain sort of described him as. But he's pretty massive, and you see sort of flashes of him basically arranging with this creature, like, because this creature's like, oh, you're coming into my territory, I'm going to like smash you and grind your bones to make my bread. And he was like, well, you could do that, but then you've got to like get your own food. How about you like leave us alone, because we're like actually over here away from you, and on a regular basis we'll send like food and victuals to you, and as long as we're still here you'll be getting that food, so like it's in your best interest to make sure we're all right. And this troll sort of like, again, seems like quite stupid, sort of like agrees to that and basically says, oh, as long as the food keeps coming, if you do need help, like send someone to the mountains, and like gives them very like vague directions, and I'll come and help, but only if like the food keeps coming. And it's got this loud booming sort of rumbling voice that you see in his memories, almost like stones grinding over each other.
Right, yeah. So I will have, as we're curious about this, I will have said that the Lord seems quite honest in his conviction. Now, whether or not this creature exists is an entirely different thing, which we cannot find out. So I'll trust it.
One last thing you pick up in the Lord's mind as he's thinking about it, which must be connected to like Dramgar, because he's thinking about Dramgar. That's how ESP works. But like you can't quite work out how it's connected. You have like a memory of like the Lord sort of like in his chamber, looking at like a random collection of small objects, and they're just random little things like a candlestick holder, a few like bits of metal, like a couple of like iron nails. But all of these things, instead of being made out of like the metal or whatever you expect them to be made out of, are made of gold.
Okay.
And you see him sort of like in his memory, like the Lord sort of like basically concealing them in like his quarters.
Okay. I will have mentioned that I will, because I have not really talked about the ESP at all, and I think probably Brock would not be very happy about that. So I'll say that I've I've picked up on the fact that the Lord probably has a sizable stash of valuables here, which, as lords, are wont to do, of course. Which, if worse comes to worse, then we do need to retreat, and there's no saving this place. There's something we could do about that too. Now, of course, I think it's worth a shot. The Lord is sincere in the sort of reinforcement plan, so I think we should see that through. But just saying, if we can't make this work, we do need something to show for all of this.
It definitely feels like we would be owed a salary for the hard work that we have done to protect the fort. Right?
We definitely do not owe allegiance to the Lord. That's
Yeah.
something.
Have you
And
actually located this stuff?
I will make vague allusions to, in the Lord's, must be somewhere where the Lord can immediately lay a hand on it if need be to abandon the fort. So probably not deep in a locked vault. So probably somewhere close at hand. It may be in the quarters, because he's planning for a retreat as well. Must be. Lords are like that. They are not very prone to go down with their fort, I find, from experience.
Would your newfound skills give us any insight into what these shadow elves are wanting?
So,
Yeah, I mean, has the Lord got any knowledge that he ain't passing on? I wouldn't have thought so, but
I think the Lord is an old man. But I guess if I don't remember if I did it, probably not, because we had better things to do, trying to flee for our lives. But I guess during this, if we go ahead with this plan, there's going to be times during the nights that there's going to be a night raid, and if such does in fact happen, John, I'll try and make a swipe at one of the shadow elves with the ESP.
Okay, no problems. Give me a
So,
moment.
do we want to commit to the plan of, whittle down the spiders during the day, make a plan for an attack when the reinforcements arrive?
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, it just depends how deadly these spiders are.
Pretty deadly from the look of the venom.
Yeah.
It's just no one's actually witnessed anyone, well, apart from the guy that didn't stand a chance, actually sort of getting bitten and actually failing a saving throw against one of these spiders is what I meant.
John did indicate that it was quite a good thing I passed.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is, if we can tempt them out and sort of shoot them and stuff, then yeah. But if you happen to go toe to toe to them, at some point something could go wrong.
Yeah, because I wonder if we can
Potential.
tempt them with like meat or something, and bit of vibration. Meat on a rope. And then just shoot them when they're eating it or trying to eat
come
it.
up
Or
with somewhere enticing them out.
yeah, because we don't necessarily have to, because we know that they follow the vibrations, right?
Oh yeah. Well, we could literally tie a rope to the edge of the webbing, couldn't we, and just sort of
Yeah.
pull at it and see if we can attract enough attention to,
Yeah.
at least get a few of them out. to
Yeah, and then we
increase
just
the
shoot
numbers.
2 or 3 of them, or whatever, 4 or 5 of them, and just see how it goes. And
Yes,
if too many come, we can stop.
Yeah, do it as long as we can and
Yeah.
see if it works. Yeah.
Okay, so indeed you set about doing that, and as you're preparing your plans for the evening, you are suddenly surprised by a loud bestial roar from the east, and looking out across the field of sticky webbing, you see this large, sort of like 15-foot tall, like massively fat, lumpy, misshapen humanoid, like basically wearing like a crude sort of like apron and breeches. Like the front of it's all stained with blood. It's holding like what looks like a small tree as a club. Suddenly just like appears like looming out of the hills and starts sort of bellowing, and it basically wades into the sort of the eastern part of the webbing and just starts like smashing it with this tree. Like spiders leap at it and it's like smashing these spiders.
Okay.
How big a tree are we talking here?
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like an old oak tree or something. It's a fairly substantial spruce.
Yeah. Okay.
And at this point, can one of you roll me for the defenders? You are now succeeding on a 3+.
Is it my turn, is it?
Yeah, go for it.
And I'll roll for the attackers.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So we both added 1. So again, night raids are launched, but they've effectively had to split their forces to like deal with this large sort of like trollish like creature that you assume is Dramgar that has appeared. So they're unable to focus their full sort of weight on the fort.
I'll try and do the ESP trick in the night on one of the shadow elves if I can.
Okay, no problem. That is absolutely fine. So you grip the hilt of your sun sword. You concentrate in like the direction of one of these like foot soldiers of these creatures, and as you're sort of like your mind links with it, you sense this. You feel like this coldness, almost like, you know, if you get like brain freeze when you eat an ice cream, that sort of like goes through your head, but you gain like an empathic understanding of the creature's thoughts, and you, as you sort of scan its mind, you know that you know a few things for certain now. One, they hate you guys because, as far as they're concerned, like you guys, like, and your sort of forefathers abandoned this place when the going got tough, and now things have got better. You've just like strolled back in and been like, "Oh, this is ours again," and they're like, "No." They're also absolutely furious because apparently, like, some idiot's been like selling mining concessions in the mountains far to the northeast, which are their homes.
So the other fort is fucking their territory up,
Yep.
I guess.
And third, they also have almost like a sort of like religious reverence for like the way marker that you discovered earlier, and they think it's like blasphemous that like the humans have just been like, "Oh, here's some handy stone, let's build on it."
There's a house on top of your sacred thing.
That's it. So it's that like triple threat which has sort of led them to finally take an action, because initially they were like, "Yeah, we hate these guys," but they're like, "Over there, we've got other things to worry about." Then they were like, "Oh, now they're over here," and they're like delving into our like mountains and like messing with our territory. And then obviously when they've come here, they're like, "Oh," and they're built on top of one of these sacred stones. Oh, it's on. You don't get specifics, but you also get the vague feeling that obviously you're not sort of scanning one of the sorcerer's ones, but you get the feeling that whatever they're doing with the captives they had, they're not trying to transform people into them. It's almost like the opposite. They're trying to work out how to transform themselves into the people.
Into people.
Yeah.
Well, they are persons, obviously, but into our kind of people.
Yeah, into like flesh and blood rather than like some living shadow.
Physical creatures. So, with these revelations, I will have confided in Malcolm in the dark hours of the night. And I will have put out the disclaimer as well. Like, I know that this is something that a lot of people would find objectionable. And I'd like to state that I actively avoid doing it. I find it uncomfortable personally, and please don't tell Brock or anyone because this is something that is going to get me hung or burnt at the stake.
Yeah,
But
but it
it's-
might stop you getting tortured by shadow elves. So
That it does, and I'll lay out the whole, like, the fact that they are actually, like, I picked up a lot, and we got confirmation that these are remnants or descendants. I don't actually know or understand that, but these are somehow related to, or are actually the people that got left behind so many centuries ago.
okay.
And that they're so this is Weimar explaining that my idea is that they're trying to recapture whatever they've lost since.
Okay.
So grasp something that we have, which they don't, which is bodies, maybe. And of course, the stone. I'll mention the stone as well. That they're never gonna stop. This is the fact that the fort is here is the problem, not the people in it.
Well, let's go and make them stop.
Mm-hmm. So I'll just have info dumped on Malcolm in the night, and then we'll progress with the plan.
Okay, so who wants to roll for the defenders then? You're still on a 3+.
Is it not the next day? Sorry, is Dramgar still?
Yep, he's still attacking. That's why you're on the 3+.
Okay, but so we rolled, and then we talked, and then it's like the next day. So do we get to do something today? Or
Yeah. If you want to do something else in the meantime, feel free.
Yeah, so I think what we want to do is basically we're going to go, right, and we're all going to leave, start burning the webbing,
Okay.
and move towards this
Yeah,
Dramgar.
I think trying to punch through the lines
Yeah.
is
Okay.
the action of the day.
Okay, so as you're burning through the webbing, obviously you will attract the attention of the spiders. So let's see how many of those you attract the attention of. 4 of them. Okay, so who of you are actually sort of like going out and like burning your way through the webbing?
I'll be there as well with, the dramatic reveal of.
Yeah, no problem. You pull the sunset out.
I thought the idea was to take basically everyone, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think if we have managed to, the Lord might just say no. I guess.
Yeah.
So because I've been laying the groundwork for this. How's the Lord reacting to our initiative, John?
He's obviously not keen on the idea of sort of sending everyone out there, but supplies are running low. He's got to face facts that, like, you can't hold out forever in the fort, and given that he's like an old sort of retired warrior, he'd rather sort of like make like a last heroic charge.
Yeah, it's got to be the right out with me.
That's it. Yeah, when you sort of phrase it like that, he's definitely like, I'd rather go for one last glorious charge, sort of like into the teeth of the enemy, rather than sort of like sit here and die like a frightened old man, like starving to death.
Yeah, I'll help him put on his armor all night. Just strap it on during the day, sally forth.
Okay, make me a charisma roll.
Oh boy. Where's Gale? Yes.
Okay, so he looks at you and he says, oh, well, you've helped him on with his armor, getting ready, etc., whatever. And he's like, if this is the last charge that we make, and this is the fall of Fort Kersey, I just want you and your friends to know that we would not have lasted anywhere near as long without the aid of you and your fellows. And whatever happens from now, know that I'm grateful for it. And he sort of he disappears into like one of the towers, and he comes out a few moments later and he says, "In case I don't make it, I want you to have this." And he like passes a small object towards you, and
I'll take it.
you take it off him, and it's an onion, but it's made out of gold. And I don't mean like, oh, it's a good carving of an onion. It literally looks like an actual onion made of
It's
gold.
an onion that has somehow become gold.
Yeah, it's like King Midas went, "Oh, I fancy an onion," and like touched it.
So I'll look at it, perplexed, and bob my head a little bit. You have my thanks. Into the bag it goes.
He nods, and you will
Sir Weimar, Knight of the Onion.
indeed, and you all start getting ready to ride out. So let's make that roll for the defenders then. Let's see how it all goes. 3 plus.
Is it me or is it you, Johannes?
I guess I can do it.
Okay, that works.
Yep. Come on.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so that's an extra 1 for the defenders. Let's see how the attackers are doing. They're still on a 4, 5, or 6. There's an extra 1 for the attackers as well. Oh, it's coming down to the wire. Okay, so before you guys can get to Dramgar, you obviously there's more than 4 spiders, but like the 4 spiders are like the ones that are like near you guys. So as you're sort of heading through the webbing, you're burning your way through. There's people on like the few remaining horses. The Lord is on the horse. You see like Weimar, so like doing like his Thundercats impression with like the sunlight coming out. You've got Brock with like doing like his Conan with like his double-handed sword, like hacking his way through the webbing, and then you see these. You know what to look for by now. You see the webbing moving. You see these like 4 spiders like converging on your position.
Okay, so I would like to be like 25 meters to the right on my own spider.
Okay.
And I would like to start shooting at the moving objects
Go for it.
and hope that they don't sense that it's coming from me because I'm on a spider.
Go for it.
Okay.
I think the spider would attack the spiders.
I don't want it to die though, because I kind of
He likes
fond
the
of it.
spider.
Yeah. Oh no,
fair,
I just
I
meant
can
in
get
a
behind that.
desperate situation.
Oh yeah. Ooh. That's 1 hit point of damage to something.
Okay, so one of your arrows grazes one of the spiders. That slices a few of the hairs off its legs.
Laughs openly.
Oh.
Okay. Who's next? Obviously, I'm just going players monsters.
I don't think I've got the range really.
Well, no, you guys are like hacking your way through now, and they're converging on you, so you can make a melee attack.
Oh, okay.
We're keeping it fairly abstract. Obviously, there'll be a lot
Yeah.
of moving and like engaging and stuff.
Just before we start, did I manage to get any more hit points resting over the last day or 2 or whatever?
We do have the ring, so we pass it around basically every time a day passes.
Yeah, I don't think Brock wants any of that sort of like magic.
Yeah,
really.
I don't deal with magic. I'm not
Let's see, there's been
building
like 3 days. Yeah, so roll 3d3. That's how many hit points you're going to recover.
So 1, 2, and two 2s and a 3. So,
There you go.
cool. Getting close. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if one of the spiders gets close enough to my little group, then I shall certainly make an attack at one.
Go for it. They're AC 12.
12. Okay. Oh,
Boom.
that'll be a hit. Oh, not so good though.
Okay, yeah, so you start hacking into one of these spiders. Weimar, what are you up to?
I will charge in with the sword, and once the spiders are in range, I will pull out the pistol and fire.
Go for it, mate. You roll your pistol. You're sort of holding your glowing sword up with one hand, shooting your pistol with the other.
Yet. Well, it makes the noise. So there's
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Yeah. So there's the loud bang of your pistol as it goes off.
Yeah. So let's see. It doesn't misfire, and the panic is okay. So the first time they make a moral check. Okay.
Yeah, they're fine.
Okay.
Okay. So on to the spiders. I'm going to do basically. Let's see. We've got 4 of them, so I'll do 1 attacking each of you, and I'll roll randomly for the other. Okay. So the first one is going to attack Weimar. Gets nowhere near. Next one on Brock. That's not looking good. Okay, Brock, you have taken 6 hit points of damage as one of these spiders hurls itself on you and bites in with its fangs. And you need to make me a poison save.
Okay. I think that's the right one.
Okay, so there's like a burning sensation in the like your bicep where it's like bitten you, but you manage to shrug it off with your natural toughness. Okay, so 1 attacking Malcolm. Misses. And then the final one I'll randomise. Is attacking Weimar. Also misses. So you're all good. Okay. Who wants to go first?
I guess I will throw down on the one near me and have my spider do the same.
Okay.
Oh, you terrible, terrible
Okay.
person.
I'll roll for the spider.
Are they +1 by any chance?
Yep.
Okay, so that's a hit, but I have no idea what the damage is.
Okay. So your spider tears into the other spider, slaying the one that was already injured, so there's 3 remaining.
Okay.
It appears as though spiders aren't really given to like the touchy-feely, you know, like, oh, we're all spiders, let's just like relax. They really don't seem to be like buying into that whole vibe, so it just like tears into it and like, kills it.
It might be a female one, probably killing the males anyway.
That's it. Okay, so who's next?
I'll have a swing at the one I'm fighting.
Go for it.
See if I can do better than last time. No.
Okay, so you do hit one of the spiders with your sword, and you like slice the end of one of its legs off, and there's like a brief spray of ichor as it sort of like scuttles a bit backwards away from you. Okay, Weimar, what do?
It's too
Okay.
agile for me.
Pistol goes back into the bandolier, and it's time for the sun sword.
Go for it.
And here goes.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
Now we're cooking with the sun.
Okay, so one of the spider where Brock has like sliced the end of its leg off, as it scuttles back to sort of like get away from him, you literally like jump on it and like plunge your sword right through the middle of it. There's a sort of hissing and a smell of burnt fur and flesh as like this like burning hot sun sword like plunges into it and like cauterizes the wound as it does. You pull it out and the spider literally just like goes like and collapses to the ground slowly, sort of like with a sort of muscular motion, slowly just
twitching.
like curling up as it dies. There are 2 remaining, so I'm gonna roll for them randomly, see how they attack. So first one is attacking Malcolm, and the second one is attacking Malcolm. So let's see if it's Malcolm or the spider. So the first one is attacking Malcolm's spider. And the second one is attacking Malcolm. So the one on Malcolm's spider. Okay, so your spider is like now fighting this other spider, and they're both sort of like biting each other backwards and forwards. It's done yours a little bit of damage, but it's not killed it.
Okay.
The one attacking yourself. Doesn't manage to bite into you. You manage to like fend it off from the back of your own mount. Okay, over to you guys.
Okay, so I will attack my one. And miss. And my spider. Ooh, has hit.
Okay, so roll a d8 for the damage.
Ooh, 2.
Okay, so again, your spider starts tearing into one of the two remaining spiders, chomping down on it. Although they don't seem to be bothered by like each other's poison. But that's not exactly surprising, is it? Okay, so Brock.
I'm gonna wade my way across to where Malcolm is and try and attack the spiders he's fighting with. Is that a hit? Is it 13?
That is indeed a hit. So
Oh, that's better.
as this spider's sort of trying to bite into yours and it's like tussling backwards and forwards with it, there's suddenly a loud shock, and this spider just like explodes, and Brock pretty much just walks straight through it, like swinging his sword up in a huge sweeping arc, and then just steps through the two halves of this spider as they go onto the ground, leaving one
Nice.
remaining. One more.
Spiders.
Okay, I will seek out the remaining one. And let's see, Sun Sword connects with some damage.
Okay, so you've hit this spider, but it's still going. You've done it quite a grievous injury, and you think probably after this combat, like if it survives, it's probably going to crawl away and die, but it's lashing out in like a frenzy. So I'm going to roll to see who it attacks. Okay, it's going for Brock. Okay, that is a hit. You take 6 points of damage, and you need to make me a poison save, but you do get a +2 bonus to it.
Roll it first. Oh.
Oh, that'll do.
Okay, yep. So again, it bites into you. You feel this brief, like burning sensation in the area where the bite mark's gone in, but again, you manage to shrug it off with your Ice Walker toughness. Okay, back to you guys. There's just this one sort of half-dead spider remaining between you and Dramcar. It was just like wailing around on like other spiders, just smashing them up and down with his tree.
Oh, that'll do. Ooh, that's probably a dead spider.
Yep. So
The next spider over dies.
Yep. So as this thing sort of like crouching down, ready to leap again at Brock, as it leaps through the air, you like leap up to meet it, Weimar, swinging the sword down, and pretty much detonate it as you like continue on forwards through like the mist that was once its body, and then putting like a couple of like steaming legs fall to the ground at either side of you as you land.
So remind me, as I seem to have forgotten, is the Sword of Respect a longsword or?
Yeah, longsword, yeah.
Yeah. I just because I realized that I don't actually remember what that was. Yeah.
Okay, so
Right.
you've reached Dramgar. You can see this big like misshapen like humanoid wailing around with this tree, like smashing spiders left, right, and centre.
So I'll be like waving over the Lord, just like go get your friend. Like, talk to him.
Yeah, so the Lord starts racing towards Dramgar. However, as he does, a spider leaps out of the web and sort of like lands on him and like bites into him. You see him like fall off his sword, so fall off his horse, and you see him like lying on the ground, like twitching again, like sort of like froth dribbling out of his mouth.
Does he have his horse still? Is the horse okay, or?
The horse is still there, yeah. But obviously he's like slid off it and he's like lying on the ground like.
Yeah. Shit. Malcolm, can you ride?
Yes, I can.
Get the horse. We need to coordinate.
Okay. So I will jump on the horse
Yep, no problems.
and ride out towards Dramgar and get him to come join us and join our forces together.
Okay, what do you say to Dramgar? As you get level with him, he finishes smashing the last of the spiders. He like looks up and he's like,
The Lord is called. Come join us in our battle with the creatures.
Okay, make me a charisma roll.
We're Team Charisma over here.
Oh, that's a
Somehow
Somehow.
Okay, Dramgar sort of looks at you and like raises an arm, and then he goes,
Okay, and I guess I'll throw him whatever rations I have.
yeah,
Left.
you obviously cross your rations off. You basically like, throw like a load of rations at him, which he grabs and he's like, like bits of food like dropping out of his mouth, and then he just like turns back to you like licking his lips and he's like, and he starts like lumbering after you.
Okay.
Okay.
now.
I was just going to ask John very quickly. The old barbarian, he's got a cure poison thing. In the wilderness, barbarian can gather herbs to concoct an antidote to natural poisons. Would I have anything to try and help the old lord of the fort? Or
Let me just.
I don't know if I'd have had stuff gathered up previously or not.
Roll me a d6.
Okay. Two.
Yeah, you've got like a few herbs because you said earlier, you were trying to do a bit of foraging, to like reinforce the food supplies. You've not been able to go out properly hunting, but I think it's reasonable to assume you've maybe like picked up a few like plants and a few bits and pieces when you've been like around the fort and stuff like that. So yeah.
I mean, all it says is basically any subject that you spend a turn sort of trying to assist gets a second saving throw, basically.
Okay. So you lean down next to Lord Kersey and you quickly like grinding these like herbs up just using your hands and probably like on the like blade of your sword, and you're like pushing these herbs into his mouth. So I'll make a quick roll for him. Okay, so your herbs do manage to revive him for a bit, but you think they've not cured him. You basically think, because obviously you've not really had time to put together like a proper cure. You think basically all you've done is like delayed the poison, so you've maybe bought him like a couple of hours, but like he's going to be getting progressively weaker, and after like a couple of hours, like the poison's gonna do its thing, and he's going to be brown bread. So you basically bought him like a last hurrah.
Okay, well I'll try and help him back up onto his horse if he's up for it.
You help him back onto the horse, and he sort of he nods at you in gratitude, and he's like you see like he's like wincing painfully because obviously the poison's like working its way through its system, and he says, "Thank you. At least with your help, I'll have the chance to die as a warrior should, in the saddle of my horse, thrusting my weapon in the faces of my enemy."
Yeah, and I sort of salute him with my sword, sort of as a sort of warrior gesture type.
he nods and he sort of does a bit of like, he like clasps you by the shoulder. And then he says, well, my time is shorter, but at least if nothing else, I can buy you and give you a distraction and buy you the time to do what you need to do. And then he basically like turns his horse round and he pretty much like charges straight towards the enemy, like screaming and like waving his sword about.
Right, so he's gonna catch a wand real soon. We need to. This is it.
As he's like riding across, you see like a couple of arrows like thud into him, and he's like, you see he's basically like holding onto the reins, like barely holding his sword up. You see he's like getting progressively like greyer, pallor as like the delayed poison is like rushing through, and it's just sort of like, you see he's like, he probably like what the effect of the poison is going to be, Brock. So you're guessing he can probably like barely see. He's just sort of like holding on and like waving his sword around. And like say that another couple of like arrows hit him and like stick in him.
Have we got anywhere near the sorcerer?
Yeah, but you can see the shadow sort of sensing perhaps imminent victory. The shadow creatures are like surging forward. The leader and his like cadre of sorcerers are at the front of them. You can see like black lightning crackling out from the wands that these 5 creatures are wielding. You can also see that in like his other hand, the leader's carrying this like dark wood staff that I mentioned earlier. He's sort of like walking across with that and like sending lightning barreling out with his wand.
Okay, so I think I want to get right up in his face and try and knock this wand out of his hand while my spider bites him.
Okay, so make an attack roll, like a melee attack roll. If you hit him, you won't damage him, but you'll have knocked the wand out of his hand.
Okay.
Nice.
That one.
Yeah.
20.
So as he's bringing the wand round to like point it at you, you lash out with the sword of respect, catching the wand and sending it sort of spinning off, and it lands somewhere in the webbing some distance off.
Okay.
Okay, roll for your spider.
Oh, yeah. 13 plus 1 or 2 or whatever.
Okay, that's not quite enough, so the spider doesn't
Okay.
manage to get purchase on it. At which point he's going to respond by striking you with the black wooden staff he's holding. So let me make an attack roll for that. Okay, so surprised by your flagrant disarming of him, he's a little bit slow to get to his staff. He swings it at you. You sort of like sidestep out the way, and as the staff like hits the ground, like it basically like smashes a huge hole in the ground, like far more than you would expect from like a standard wooden staff.
Okay.
And you're like pretty sure that would have been incredibly nasty if like it had struck you. But like he's a bit slow and a bit surprised by your action, so you like sidestep him.
Okay.
Okay, Brock, what are you doing? Obviously, you've seen your man doing this.
Yeah, it's not in a good way, Brock, at the minute. He's probably got about 1 hit in him. Well, he's going to have to charge this mad, crazy sorcerer guy.
I like your style.
So, yeah, he's going to give some sort of Ice Warrior sort of charge shout as he runs towards him with his 2-handed sword. Tries to decapitate him. Obviously, I'm sure he won't be able to. But... Oh, it's good. A good attempt, though.
It is a good attempt. Damn.
That's the good old, Valconan try.
Fair play to him.
Okay, so yeah, as he's like bringing his staff round, planning to like sweep it round and strike at Malcolm again, you've sidestepped his first attack, Malcolm. You see Brock come steaming in, sort of swinging this double-handed sword. it cleaves through the shadow stuff that composes the being of this flesh-faced sorcerer. He screeches in like this loud sort of hissing noise and falls back slightly as you see like a large chunk of the shadow stuff that composes his body detach, and as it detaches from him, it evaporates. Why more?
Nice work, Brock.
I guess we're working on at least the theory that if we take him, or this flesh masked one down, that something will happen to our benefit. So I guess I would be like trying to flank while this is happening. Get out the shield.
Luckily as well, you do have the advantage because while the other like 4 sorcerers are there, like Dramgar and like the rest of the people are like sort of keeping them occupied.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea behind the like, let's get all the bodies in the field because then there's too many targets for them to just burn. So yeah, we want to, of course, we don't understand what the staff is as well. Seems very dangerous. So Weimar's been trying to get to a flanking position, like I said, with the shield out now, because now it's real playtime, and trying to come in with the sun sword, trying to sort of fence more than like do the overhand overhead swings. Okay, here goes. And I'm sure I asked this last time, John, but I will ask again because I forgot. I'm pretty sure they're not undead.
They're not, no.
Yep. So here goes. That's a connection, I believe. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh.
Okay, yep, you strike a very palpable blow with the sun sword, and this does seem to injure the creature, and it like again it shrieks out loud as part of its being is shredded by the sun sword. Okay, over to the mage. I'm just going to roll randomly to see who he attacks because you're also wailing on him. Okay, so it's going for Weimar.
Makes sense.
Yep. Okay, so he's using his Shadow Strike staff. However, again, sort of forced back by the purifying fires of the Sun Sword, he's sort of like he's trying to block you more than he is trying to hit you, so that he's not able to get a blow on you. Okay, nice. Over to you guys.
Do this. $15.
Indeed. So you strike him with the Sword of Respect.
And my spider bites the ground in his general vicinity.
Yeah. Okay, you can see he's sort of like he's falling back now, and like so much of the shadow stuff that makes his body has been like shredded and evaporated that it's almost as though like he's like physically having trouble like holding the rest of his body together. Like as he's moving, just like wisps of like shadow stuff, it's just like even when you're not hitting him, are just like dropping off him in the same way an injured man might spill blood as they fell back. Just like bits of him are just like falling away and like evaporating. Okay, Brock.
Well, we'll push the advantage while we've got the chance. And try and catch him off guard. No. Not this time.
Okay. So down to Weimar then.
Oh.
Okay.
He's
So,
the pointy end.
as he
I was
falls,
following the spider's lead.
as he falls backwards, using the last of his strength, the shadow elf like raises his staff high into the sky, and he screams something out in a language you're not familiar with. There is a bright flash of light, and when the flash clears, he is not there anymore.
That's good and bad.
Come back, you coward. Is his wand still available by any chance, or did it dissipate?
His wand hasn't dissipated.
Has or hasn't? Sorry.
Hasn't.
Okay,
It's
I'd
still
like
there.
pick it up and see what happens.
You pick it up, nothing happens. It's a wand of like dark wood with a dark stone on it.
Okay.
And while Malcolm fiddles with extremely dangerous shadow elf artifacts, I would like to charge the enemy. if just to get away from whatever is about to happen with the wand.
Okay, so with the loss of their leader, and with the arrival of Dramgar, the Shadow Elf forces start to be pushed back, and over the course of the next sort of day, they are forced from the field. A lot of them are killed. Those few that remain seem to like disappear into the hills and the woodlands surrounding the area. With them gone, the spiders also seem to not just sort of withdraw. They don't scatter immediately, but they start sort of like returning to like their natural sort of inclination, which isn't to like lurk around in like large open spaces. So they start like scuttling off into the hills, which probably means there's going to be like a bit of a giant spider problem around here like in the near future. But for the moment, they're sort of gone, and with them gone and no longer constantly renewing the webs, those few defenders that remain, and the population of Fort Kersey has been like drastically depleted. Those few people that remain, with the last remaining oil under your direction, they start sort of like burning the webbing away, and gradually they start clearing the remainder of it. And as you're sort of like supervising this, Brock, you're sort of like walking back and like cleaning the shadow stuff, this foul magic off your sword, wiping it on the grass that's now clear of webbing. You see sort of like sat against the wall of the fort is Captain Nelson. You didn't even realise he'd like arrived back at the battlefield. You can see he's sort of like sat against the wall. There's like, he's got like a wound on his chest, what looks to be one of the sort of shadow arrows that's obviously dissipated, but he's still got the wound there, and he's just sort of sat leaning against the wall. So one of the few survivors is like pressing like a bandage onto his wound, and he looks up at you and he's like, "Did we win?"
We certainly did. Does he look like he's in his sort of dying breaths, or
he looks very pale.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I can do with him to ease his pain. But I'll pick up his sword, put it in his hand, and I'll sort of put a hand on his shoulder. We won this day. They have been defeated.
He sort of clasps the sword across his chest, and he's like, "Yes, although I don't know what we're going to do now that my lord is gone, but hopefully I'll see him again in Leander's golden halls."
Malcolm, the ring.
So I'll come over and tap Brock on the shoulder and tell him that Weimar needs to see him. And as soon as his attention is gone, I will put the ring on the captain's finger.
Yep, you put the ring of regeneration on the captain's finger, and it starts doing its thing. It gets about... It basically like regenerates like the equivalent of like half his hit points. So he's still got like scratches and bruises on him or something. And then you notice that like it doesn't seem to be regenerating him any further.
Okay, so then I'll take it off him.
Okay. You take it off him. He's no longer in danger of dying. He's still quite injured, but he's not like knocking on death's door.
Okay.
He looks confused because obviously he was passed out when this happened. So like he doesn't know you put the ring on him. He was like, "Oh, I'm ready to go to the Hall of the Ancestors." And then he's like, "Actually, I don't feel so bad. I think I might make
headache.
it. I think I might make it."
So Leander is not ready for you, Captain Nelson.
Maybe next time.
Maybe next
Captain.
time. We do, however, have to talk about the future of Fort Kersey.
Yes, indeed. We have like a smash cut to like the sort of improvised like command tent with you all sort of sat round there. One of the like the sides of the tent has been like pulled down because Dramgar's too big to fit in the tent. So he's like sort of sat on the ground just outside it, and they've like pulled back one side of the tent so we can like see in. And he's like, so he says, "You're right. We do need to discuss what's going to happen with Fort Kersey now that my lord has passed beyond the world."
So we believe that these creatures worship the stone that the fort is built on, and that they will always return here. We suggest, with respect to the few defenders who are left, that there probably isn't enough here to defend the fort again, and would offer you the haven of New Sealand and starting again. We have contracts with traders in Rohaleen, and traders are on the way. We have much stronger defenses, and ultimately it would be a far better chance of survival. It's closer to the sea and the river. Food is not as big a risk, as difficult to come by. And like I say, this way marker is a relic of these creatures, and they will most definitely return if you stay here.
He looks thoughtful for a few moments and then says, yes, I think you're right. There's not enough of us here to hold the fortress anyway, even if we decided to do so. And if we did, it would take some time to get new people in to settle, to rebuild. And given what you've just said about these creatures returning, I think you're right. It's probably best to abandon the fort, especially with the harshness of winter coming in.
Indeed.
But I will, speaking on behalf of the survivors of Fort Kersey, I accept your generous invitation. And he sort of like shakes hand.
Okay.
And then he sort of like stands up and he walks over. It's still like a bit of a pained expression on his face, but he stands up and he walks over to Dramgar, and he says, we're going to be leaving this place, but any of the food or anything that you can eat that remains in the fort is yours to consume as you see fit. And he even gestures at like the remaining like couple of horses. He's like, as thanks for your help. And Dramgar's like, nods, and you see him sort of like, he like grabs a horse under one arm, and then he like grabs like some other food that like is within range, and you see him sort of like waddling off back towards the east. And as presumably yourselves and the last survivors of Fort Kersey, which number no more than a dozen people, start sort of wending your way towards New Zealand, that is where we're going to call an end to the session for this evening. Thank you very much for playing, guys. I hope you enjoyed the session.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks, that was good.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 down, 3 to go, right?
Indeed. So I'm going to end the recording here, but obviously we'll sort out XP and stuff like that. So just remains for me to thank my wonderful players, and to anyone who's watching this in the future, thank you very much, and we'll catch you soon. Take it easy.